Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for March 11th. We're starting this meeting at 7 p.m. Because of the state of emergency, we are holding this meeting virtually. And I will go ahead and take a roll call vote. Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Kindermans,
Present.
Mr. Faia,
Here.
and Ms. Akers Moore here. Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. 7 p.m. Concord Museum for a special permit. Who is here from the museum?
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Alex. I'm the manager of public programs at the Concord Museum.
Great. Thanks for coming. You can go ahead and just give us a brief presentation. Oh, can anyone hear her? Okay. Yeah, we can't hear you for some reason. You're not muted. It's going in and out.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you for hearing us this evening. The museum is applying for a special permit to host outdoor movie screenings on the front lawn of the museum this summer. We are requesting to hold screenings 6 Thursday evenings between June and August. While we are requesting 6 dates in the application, we may choose to hold 2 of those dates at rain or weather dates and instead host a total of 4 screenings throughout the summer. On the evening of the series, we'll install a 21-foot temporary outdoor movie screen.
Allison, I'm going to ask you if you can just probably move a little bit closer to your computer and your mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
No,
So-
that's all right.
We'll install a temporary 21-foot movie screen. It's along with a generator and speakers. And the screenings will take place on the front lawn, which is at the intersection of Lexington Road and Cambridge Turnpike. The screen will be set up against the museum's little building, west facade. The films will start at sunset, which is 8:15 in the summers, and will not go past 10:30 p.m., at which time the equipment rental company will dismantle and remove the screening equipment from the museum's property. Families will park in the museum lot and in legal spaces along Cambridge Turnpike and Lexington Road. The Orchard House has also generously offered their parking lots for additional overflow spaces. We will have a police detail there as well to help facilitate that parking. We are expecting an audience of 100 people, mostly families, to set up blankets and folding chairs to enjoy the films. So we're grateful to have hosted similar film screenings on the front lawn in 2015 and 2017. So we're poised to build off the success and popularity of those programs. This year, it is important for the museum to revive the film screening series. Like many other cultural institutions, our doors have been shuttered to the public for the greater part of the last year. We are reopening this spring with a stunning temporary exhibition on the women of Concord. This film series, entirely focused on women's stories, will support our goal to start safely bringing the community back to the museum and see us once again as a place to gather and consider our shared history and future. This has been far from an individual effort on the part of the museum. We are partnering with other institutions in town to show films that resonate with our shared missions. That includes the Orchard House, the Robbins House, the Umbrella, and a couple of local farms. While we know we need the board to approve our permit application, we are grateful to not only have secured these partnerships, but also a generous grant that is funding the for this series. So thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's great. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Is there going to be any ticketing for the And, you know, or once you hit the 100 or 125 people, are you going to turn folks away, or how's that going to be managed?
We'll do advanced registration. So we'll have ticketing on our website, which is how we do our program. So people will be directed there to reserve tickets, and they know there's a limited capacity, especially given COVID. We don't want to over enroll people.
Thanks.
Ray, I don't know. I know it goes back to 2015 and 17. Do we have any record of, you know, any incidents or complaints or whatever with respect to that or everything? Those.
Not-
No complaints. No, I haven't heard anything from anybody.
Ray or Elizabeth, do you have any issues with the application?
No, I don't. I mean, it's the third time they've applied for it. Same amount of people, so I don't see any problems.
I don't see any problems. You know, should the board decide to approve it. I think previously, you know, there was the standard condition, even though Allison said, you know, requiring a police detail, and I think it's the condition regarding ending by 10:30. And so tickets will be sold in advance and limited to 100 people.
125. I think she said 125, but yeah.
Was it 125, Allison, or I thought it was 100?
Application said 100 to 125.
Okay, so 120, no more than 125.
Any other questions from the board before I open it up? Okay, go ahead and open it up for public comment. If anyone has any questions or comments.
They can use the raise hand function.
All right. Seeing none. I'll go ahead and close public comment. This seems fine to me with the conditions that you just said, Elizabeth. The police detail ending by 10:30, sold in advance, limited to 125, obviously in compliance with all whatever COVID restrictions are in place at the time, if there are any. So I don't know what that'll do to your numbers, if anything. Anyone else have any comments, or can I get a motion?
I will make a motion to approve a special permit for the Concord Museum under sections 434, 545, and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw to host 6 outdoor movie events at 53 Cambridge Turnpike with the aforementioned conditions.
And I don't know if we have to say in June, July, and August 2021, but I just said it, so.
Is that it?
Second.
All right, all in favor, Mr. Kindermans,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Akerst-Moore, aye. Thank you so much.
So much.
Okay. Great, moving on to 705, Michael Wick. Is Michael here?
Yes,
I'm sorry, where are you?
up, it's where it says Jean.
Oh, hi, Jean.
Hi, Mike's here.
Hi, I'm Elise. I'm here to represent
Oh,
them.
hi, Elise.
Hi, sorry.
That's all right. Do you want to?
Yes, yeah, do you want me to do the presentation?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be,
So the property is 11 Elsinore Street. It is a single-family house that was built in 1862, and it has a detached single-car garage. The current living space is 1398.59 square feet on 2 levels, and the garage is 264.1 square feet. And the project consists of turning the garage into a studio, finished space, and adding 256.5 square feet that will enlarge the studio and connect it to the main house. So the new total of the house will be 1,872.19 square feet.
Elise, Elise, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to bring the plans up for
Well,
you?
I think bringing the plans up would be great. Thank you. If you can do it.
Yep.
Thanks.
I don't know which plan you want first.
Maybe the site plan would be good. Although we could show it on this one as well. So you see in the back left, there's a dotted line that kind of divides it. That part in the back left is the existing garage. So the connecting part is the 9.5 foot section, and that it connects it straight back to the house, kind of there. So we're adding, the bathroom, laundry, and then a studio kind of finished space. The entire, so I'll start with the FAR. So the allowable FAR on this lot is 2,187 square feet. So the existing square footage and the garage is 1662.69 square feet. And so the new square footage, as I mentioned before, is 1872.19. So we are below the FAR that is allowed on this lot. And we're also below the 50% rule where, you can only add 50% of the existing living space. So if we did it by that, we would be allowed to add 2494, which is obviously over the FAR. So we're way under that. And then we're coming to you because the everything on this lot is non-conforming. So the current house and the garage are non-conforming to all the setbacks. So the existing rear setback is 13.28. The left is basically, the left of the garage is actually on the lot line. The right setback, it's only 4.23. And so we are not coming near those setbacks. So to the right, the new proposed rear right side would be 22.86. So like I said, the existing closest point is 4.23. So we're well within that. And then the existing rear is 13.28, and our proposed rear setback is 14.38. So we're stepping it back there as well. So from the front, maybe we could look at the photographs. Oh yeah, so there's the back that it's, oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so the right side of the screen is the existing, and you see there's an existing shed there as well. And the right side, it shows how it's going to be connected and the different right setbacks and all that. And like I said before, the existing house is non-conforming, and the current lot size is non-conforming. It's 4,089 versus 10,000 required. And also the frontage. The frontage is supposed to be 80 and this is 44. So anyway, that's, you can see it's a completely, never had a project that has everything non-conforming, but here we are. And so from the front, you won't see the rear addition because it's going to be, a low roof. It's only, you'll see the higher roof on the garage in the back. And the roof currently is 12 feet high and we're going to 16 feet high.
Hey, Elise,
Yes,
I'd like to clarify the square footage. When we did the initial review, I don't think, I didn't notice it then, but the existing square footage says 1662.69, right? Plus a 256.5 is actually 1919.
oh yeah, no, that's right. It's right here.
Right.
I did change it. Yeah, 19.
So it's still under, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, it's still under. The required FAR is 2187.35. Yeah.
And you're at what, 1919?
1919. Yep.
19.19.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so that's what we have on this.
Yeah. So the side here, you see the new roof and then the connector roof.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have just a couple clarifying ones. The first is, I mean, I think this is right, but so there's no longer going to be any garage in this parcel, right?
Yes,
And then, am I right that the garage currently is right on the lot line, but it looks like in one of these diagrams that this studio will be slightly off the lot line? Is that, am I
well, so,
reading that right? Or I mean, this,
I mean, we are gonna keep the wall, but the surveyor, he called me and he said, I am not allowed to show this, you know, where it is. So, I mean, he was kind of adamant. So, the
that
builder,
the definition of a surveyor? Anyway,
I mean, our intent is to use the wall and the foundation. If
okay.
it shows that we can't use that when they start digging and building, then we will shift it slightly over. You know, we won't dig and put a new foundation if we have to put that under on someone else's property. But the overhang, there is actually quite a big overhang you can see that goes into the other property. That is, it's coming off.
That is coming up?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
What was that? You just said you would go into the neighbor's property if you had to? Is that what you?
It
No, we-
would not go into
We
the,
would
No,
not.
it's like, well,
We
that's,
would not. No, we would not. No.
so, but the existing garage may be on the other property.
It is on the other property. You can
definitely is
see
on the
it
other
there. It just goes
Yeah.
over just a little bit. I mean, they say here 0.24. It's
0.24 encroachment, yeah, okay.
yeah.
Interesting. So are we allowed to say you can build on someone else's property?
no, I don't think she's proposing that.
No, we're not proposing that.
You said you're gonna use the existing wall if you can though, but the existing wall is on someone else's property.
Right, but that would just be, I mean, Ray, how would you call that? I mean, because it's
Well-
there, right?
I mean, if you can show with the cursor which wall you're connecting to. I mean, you're not connecting to the wall on the property line, I don't believe, right?
No, that's not changing. We're just
Right,
connecting.
so I think if you can point that out where the new addition's going in
Yeah.
regard, in relation to the existing garage, I think that will clarify that.
Yeah, it's not touching that wall.
So this wall, this, I know I can't point it at, the
Um,
wall that is
So let
approaching
me,
is getting
so-
torn down.
yeah, so let me ask, so here's the existing garage. Can everybody see this
Yes,
in my
Yeah.
hand?
Yeah,
Mhm.
So Elise, here's the existing garage.
yes.
Is this existing garage being torn down?
We hope not.
Okay,
Yes, I mean,
so the existing garage stays, it's gonna be converted. And this is
Right,
the addition.
yes, exactly. And so there will be a new roof on the garage. Just because the roof is really not well built and it's just to get the insulation, the roof pitch a little higher. So,
But this roof overhang on that side, so maybe,
well, that's coming off, that
Yeah,
roof overhang.
so-
If you see the photos.
oh my goodness, hang on.
Hmm.
As you can tell, I'm not very good at this.
Oh, you're better than me.
Let's,
Oh, you know, I might not have you could see it a little bit on the left. I just didn't, you can't
Oh,
really
there it is.
behind that other garage. You can see it a little bit there. It's just hard. I didn't want to, you had to walk behind the other people's property to get that photo.
so it's this,
No, it's even bigger. It sits behind the garage. It kind of comes down. You see it on the site plan. You see it kind of etched out, but that's coming off.
yeah, I think it's this right here.
Oh yeah, that's probably what it is. Okay, yeah.
So that's coming off.
Yeah.
does anyone else have an issue with granting a special permit that is, I understand that the wall is existing, but it is being altered and it is on someone else's property? Am I the only one that?
Well,
Uh,
Elise, is this wall being altered or they're just putting a new roof on?
Right now, the idea is no, leave the wall. No windows are going in that wall and just put a new roof on. So this is the,
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is the existing wall and then,
yeah. And we're just pitching the roof the other way as well.
oh, okay, so then, so the roof, instead of looking like that,
Mhm.
it'll look like that.
Exactly, yeah. It just worked better with the larger portion being the gable in the back. That way.
So will this roof overhang because you're changing the pitch of the roof in a different direction? Won't this overhang on this side be even less
Yes,
Yeah.
it will.
than
Yeah.
this?
Oh, totally. It's gonna go straight up and just be a flat rake. So it'll be actually like you see the roof next door.
And will it be completely on their property once you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be like that 0.24, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let's assume for the moment that because the existing wall is going to stay there, that somehow we could approve this. It just doesn't make any sense at all to me that this would be what you would do. Because you've got, I mean, it's one thing not to have the setbacks work, but it's another thing to say that part of my house is on somebody else's property. Doesn't that cause, untold problems down the line? And wouldn't, given the fact of what you're doing here, it would be less expensive now to fix that and make sure that the entire thing is on your property than it would be to sort of put this whole great big, this whole nice addition up, which clearly is very nice. And then, property ownership changes someplace along the line. And then there's this big brouhaha about the house being on the wrong property.
Exactly what I was thinking, Jim. Down the line for financing and conveying title and all that. Why wouldn't you just move it
Well,
off?
so Elise, my question is, so right now with the way the roof is, where the way the roof is on the existing garage, and I know, this really large corrugated metal overhang thing. So how is the surveyor with the new addition now coming up with a setback of 1 foot and 0.83?
Well,
Is that
So when
because
he called me and he was saying the same thing as you. He says, look this is 0.24. I said, well, the idea is that we're not taking that wall down. He said, but to your point, is a legal document to stamp. He says he was having trouble. So, the problem is you can't make it legal anywhere, right? Like we can't shift it behind the house. It just, nothing is right. You're already close. But I mean, it would be fine if you said you want us to shift it over one. So I said to him, well, shift it on if that's what you feel we have to do. And I knew we would have this discussion, but I mean, if you would,
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I would just, at least I would just make the distinction between, I understand that it's not conforming with the setback rules in any place. And I am perfectly willing to deal with that. I think this is a great idea. I'm glad to see the immediate neighbors are happy. I think I saw a notice about that. If I'm remembering the right property, this all makes a lot of sense to me, except that I just think that it is not a good idea at all to have to not fix the fact that if this is on somebody else's land, that's like a much bigger deal to me than it doesn't meet the setback. I think the surveyor's right. I just think it's a problem that needs to be fixed, and I'd strongly, if it's possible for us to condition this on being set up in such a way that it is in conformity with the surveyor's plan, so that it's not on not on time, that I'm happy to do that. But I just otherwise it's really fine. But I just can't abide the fact that
that would be absolutely fine. I'm never sure about these things because you'd never put something a foot from the lot line that's not already there. So I mean, we're putting new foundation anyway on
3/4 of it.
3/4 of it. So it's really like, that would be fine if you wanted to condition to move it off so that all aspects, including the rake, would conform to the setback.
No,
I don't know if it's
not the
conforms-
setback.
Setback,
Not the
this
setback,
conforms to the title, yeah.
It would be on
Right,
their
correct.
property. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, the drawing as the surveyor had shown it with those dimensions, I think would be perfectly approvable by us.
Okay.
But
Their property.
But
speaking for the board here, but
It's making
I-
the project less non-conforming.
right,
You're right.
right. And
I mean, the
and-
other alternative would be to somehow have a deal with your neighbor and have them grant you some piece of their land so that, you know, it's some kind of a swap deal or something so that your garage was still on their land. We've done that kind of thing before too. I just think that at the end of the day, I would like this house to be 4 square on the property to which it's associated and not to be on somebody else's property.
That's fine. I mean, I don't think, I think it's better to move the foundation because all those lots are very tight there.
Yep. Okay,
Ultimately, oh, sorry, ultimately, in the end, if they were to go to sell the property, and somebody were to require a mortgage, there may be and correct me, there's 3 lawyers sitting here, but correct me if I'm wrong, that could potentially become a significant problem for a bank.
yes, that's what Jim and I think, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And since you're already working on it, it seems easily solvable. Let me open up to public comment unless there are any other comments from the board.
I have one question, and it's really more that I would like to have confirmation that there's still 2 parking spaces. Since the garage is being taken out, that there's still 2 parking spaces on site.
Yes, the driveway is long enough to have 2 cars.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up to public comment. You can use your raise hand function if you would like to comment. I don't see any comments, so I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment.
Yeah, and just in the public comment as well, we did indeed have a letter in support from one of the neighbors. So
You're
just
right.
want to note that.
Other than the issue of it being all on the property owner's property, I don't have any issues with this. I think it's sensible and is not detrimental. And I guess now we're talking about reducing the nonconformity, so. Any other comments?
Just a question for Ray. So as part of the building permit process, when they finish the foundation, before they do framing, there's the surveyor would go out and confirm.
Correct. Yeah, it's built.
So because this is so tight, Elise, you may want to have the surveyor
Definitely.
put up
more.
put up the string and
Yes.
let the contractor know.
Yes, exactly. No, believe me. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times the surveyor will go after the footings are in and pin the footing for the contractors so they know exactly where the line is.
Before they pour the concrete.
Well, yeah, they'll excavate. Surveyor will give them their points and maybe even go back after the footings are in and square it up so that they can get the walls correct again. So, I mean, it's not that hard to do.
Okay,
And I just want to remind the applicant and at least that this will need a Board of Health review also.
okay.
Because why, right? Just out of curiosity.
Anytime you add additional rooms to your house or rearrange the floor plan, Board of Health is, they do a review whether you're on septic or on town sewer.
Oh, got it. Sure.
All right, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we, let's see. We grant a special permit under sections 11.6 and 7.1.3 to the applicant. I don't have the stuff in front of me. I'm sorry.
So I can note from Michael Wick for a special permit under section 7.1.3 and 11.6 to reconstruct an existing non-conforming house and attached garage by constructing a 257 square foot addition. to expand and connect the garage to the house on a non-conforming lot at 11 Elsinore Street. With,
And so- yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, with the condition that indeed dimensional dimensions as shown on the surveyor plot plan will be followed, which will move the foundation wall on the applicant's property and make the non-conformities less. Anything else?
No, we don't need to put the Board of Health in there, right? We can, just gonna be a separate, all right.
No, I just think it's finding that's not detrimental to the neighborhood, beneficial to the neighborhood. Good, I second.
Great, Mr. Kindermans,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye,
Ms. Akers-Moore, aye. Great.
looks like a great project.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. All right, moving on to 7:10, Kelly Carlson and Carol Parker.
Hello, I'm Carol Parker,
Oh, hi, Carol.
58 Eaton Street. The gist of our proposal would be to extend our existing side yard side deck, which goes to our non-conforming 6.1 foot side yard setback. It's the deck now is currently 6 feet wide by 13 feet long. We would like to extend it 7 feet further back and then raise the level so that it's at the same level as our existing back deck and would also be would meet the back deck. I think that the surveyor's site plan makes it very easy to see what that would do. And then also to extend a shed roof that's just over the back door here, to extend that to the end of the side yard deck so that we could then screen in this side deck. The final thing would be 6 feet by 20 feet.
Okay, so where it says existing, okay, yep.
Yeah, there's the existing back deck and the existing side deck, and it really would just add this piece that would connect the two of them.
Pretty straightforward. Questions from the board?
Can somebody help me with the setbacks here? This is
6.
non-conforming because of something, obviously. Setback side, something. What's the reason this lot's non-conforming?
Side yard setbacks.
This is
Is
just
there,
one-
that's the 6.1, right? So this is not adding to the non-conform, it's adding to the non-conformity in the extent that it's extending straight back from the house, is what I'm gathering, yes.
Yeah, it maintains the setback, but it's just 7 more feet of structure at that setback. 7 more feet of deck.
Okay,
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Not for me.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and open up to public comment. I can't see everyone, but Elizabeth or Heather, is it anything? Oh, now I can see everyone. I do not see anyone. Okay. Go ahead and close the public comment. Again, seemed pretty straightforward to me. Like you said, Jim, it's not going further into the closer to the lot line. It doesn't seem to be any detrimental to the neighborhood, in my opinion.
I agree.
yeah, I think it actually sort of I mean, obviously by raising that up, I think it actually makes the, just makes a property more appealing, quite frankly. So.
Okay. A motion?
Yep, I can read it. Motion to approve special permit for Kelly Carlson and Carol Parker for a special permit under section 713 and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw to extend a non-conforming deck that's 6.1 feet from the property line on a non-conforming lot at 58 Eaton Street.
We have any Elizabeth or Rick?
I don't think we had any conditions here that we discussed, right? With the
Gonna want to find a as-built for this also.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. And we just want to note that it's not adding to while it's extending the non-conformity for 7 feet, it's going straight back and not increasing the width of the non-conformity, I guess.
Okay,
That's added.
second.
Second.
Great, Mr. Kindermans.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Akers Moore, aye. Thank you very much.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
This looks like a
excellent.
great project too. These have been great
Yeah.
projects tonight.
Yeah.
Mark.
Jim, where did you go, Jim? I'm not seeing Jim anymore. Is that me
Oh, he's
or-
here. I see him.
I see him. Okay. Oh, there's a second screen. Ooh, this is
A lot of people.
a lot
All
of people. Yeah.
7:15. Evan and Lynn Duffy. 225 Thoreau. And that's him connecting to audio. Is that?
Yeah, it's been saying that for a bit. So hopefully.
Oh, check mark. Oh, nope, you're muted now.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah, could you also unmute my phone, because I'd rather mute the audio on the computer and talk through the phone, because it's going to be clearer that way. And that's the 2128 number at the bottom of the participant list.
Thank you.
Asked to unmute, I have. Can we do that, or do you, I see, I can say ask to unmute, which I've done.
Yeah, then I think he's got to unmute one and mute the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, just forget the phone. It's too complicated. It's not.
If you hit *6 from your phone, that will unmute you.
Okay, did that do it? All right, do you still hear me on the computer?
Perfect.
audio?
Yep.
We can hear you great.
Okay, all right, I'm just going to go forward with that. So as far as going over the presentation, I think the easiest thing is for me to share my screen and then go over the proposal that we've submitted.
Great.
All right. Okay, so what we're proposing is to add a kitchenette to a room over our garage that's been existing since 2006. This is the house, the front view of the house, and the back area here shows the garage that was added again in 2006. And just to give you a better idea, this is detached, and that's a view of the garage, and we have a bonus room above that we're currently using basically as an office. Our daughter just got married in September of last year, and they are expecting a baby, and they're looking for a house, but that's difficult. So we're planning to make this a studio apartment with a bathroom and kitchenette for them to live in, so they have a private space, although they're still living with us. But that's the main driver and why we wanted to do this. This is a picture of the back of the garage, and you can see there's a deck and the slider that leads to the bonus room that's up there now. This is a picture inside, and this corner here is where we're adding the bathroom. Actually, that's already been roughed in and approved and inspected. And this area here along this half wall is where we'd like to add the kitchenette, and it's for the kitchenette that I believe we had to apply for the special permit. And to give you an idea of the kitchenette, it would be 74.5 inches. It'll have a sink and a cooktop, and then some cabinet space. And then kitty corner to that, there'll be an area where we would just plug in the fridge, but that doesn't require any additional alteration of the room. And this picture, I think it makes it a little bit clearer. You can see this again, the bonus room. It's about 436 square feet. And you can enter either through the back stairway I showed you, or there's another stairway coming up through the garage. And as you round the corner, this is where I showed you the half wall. That's the area where we would add the kitchenette, and this area is the bathroom. So we're not adding any additional floor space. Everything stays the way it is. We're simply just adding the kitchenette for them within the existing space. It's already finished room. It's already heated. All of that is the way it is today. This shows the plot plan. This shows, it says new garage because this is, I think, what we submitted back in 2006 when the garage was added with the bonus room on top. And because I think the reason we have to do the special permit is because the offset of the garage is approximately 5 feet from the back lot. And I think that was the reason why we had to ask for a special permit for the kitchenette part of this. And that's pretty much it. I think it's fairly straightforward. Plenty of parking. Yeah, we do have plenty of parking in the driveway for cars. We're not really, in this case, adding additional cars, but if we were to add additional cars, we've got the space within the garage, and then got a driveway that is the whole length of the property. So that's 100 feet along this side of the house where we have parking space.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just to clarify, because you've said it a couple times, it's the kitchenette that makes it an accessory dwelling unit, right?
Right, yep, correct. Yep.
That's okay, great. Just to clarify that. Seems very straightforward to me. Any questions from the board, comments?
Just since Ray mentioned it earlier, does this need to go to Board of Health as well?
I believe the applicant's already been to, did the review and got approved. I think they just a sewer improvement fee that's due, correct, Kevin?
Yeah, we're tying into we're on town sewer, so the bathroom and the sink and the kitchenette would tie into the town sewer.
But you do have your approval from the sewer department, I believe, right? I checked the file this morning.
Do we have approval from the sewer department?
Well, you'll have it before you get a building permit anyways.
I'm not sure we have the approval from the water and sewer yet, although we've submitted everything to her and we've asked her a couple times this week if there's anything else she needed from us. Prior to that, for the rough and the plumbing that was already put in for the bathroom and roughed out for the kitchenette, that was all inspected by the plumbing inspector. And I think the next step is we have to pay a fee for connecting to for the water and sewer, and we've sent her the information, and I think we're just waiting to get back from her.
And Ray, you think it's approval in the file?
So I checked with one of the local inspectors here this afternoon before we left about this project, and he checked his file, and it's been approved. They there's a fee that's due of about $4,400.
Okay, yeah, okay, well, that's great. They didn't tell us that, but we're ready to write the check.
Normally, the applicant wouldn't pay for it till they get approval anyways.
Yeah,
Because if it got denied, I don't think they get their $4,400 back.
yeah, right. Yeah, oh yeah, we're ready. That's great news. So we're ready to write them the check.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, and
I just
just
have a
confirm it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jim,
Sorry.
No, Jim, go ahead.
I was just gonna follow up on one thing that somebody said. So I understand that the permit here because it creates an additional dwelling unit by having the kitchenette, or is the permit because a garage can be sort of 5 feet from the back of the line, but an additional dwelling unit can't be 5 feet from the back of the line? That creates a non-conformity. I'm just trying to understand the.
Well, so Article 32 of the new bylaw requires that the additional dwelling unit meet setbacks for a primary structure. And if it doesn't, they have to come to the board for the special permit. So that's why they're here.
So they're not, so they could, so if this was, whatever the back setback is, I can never remember. But if it was already back there and they put in this kitchenette, everything would be fine because of Article 32. But Article 32 says, if you're going to put in this kitchenette and create this unit, you now have to meet the setback requirements.
Right. You have to meet setback and lot area, and they meet the lot area. So
great.
All right.
And then just to confirm, there are 4 legal parking spaces out on the site right now, still.
Yes, yeah, actually, we can do more than 4 cars, but yes.
You need 4, just good.
Elizabeth.
Yep, so to Jim's point, I'll just, it reads that the board may grant a special permit for relief for an additional dwelling unit located on a lot with less than the required minimum lot size for the applicable zoning district, and or an additional dwelling unit up to 1,000 gross feet, and or a reduction in the required setbacks for a detached additional dwelling unit, provided that the desired relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the neighborhood and without derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw.
Great.
So this is a detached garage, therefore 5 feet, but we can grant this permit if we make those findings. Right, got it.
Okay. Let me open them to public comment. Again, use your raise hand function if you want to comment. I don't see any comments. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment. Again, seems very straightforward to me and not detrimental to the neighborhood since there's nothing being done on the exterior and the garage was already approved. Any other thoughts or motion?
No, but I can make the motion. I'm not muted, so I can make the motion for Kevin and Lynn Duffy for a special permit on the section 4222 and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw for a 435 square foot additional dwelling unit that is 5 feet from the property line at 225 Thoreau Street. With findings that it's not more detrimental to the neighborhood. And then the additional findings that Elizabeth just mentioned, zoning bylaw, which I don't have in front of me.
It's not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood and without derogating from the intent and purpose of this bylaw.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I second that. I think it's exactly the intent and purpose of this bylaw, so I think it's good.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Kindermans.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Akers Moore, aye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, great. All right, moving on, 725 Commons and Newberry. Hello.
Hi.
All right, so when we last left off.
Finally, a non-controversial project that you guys can just whip right through.
Right.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry, I just want to make one point here, which is I think that Robbie's voting on this one, right? I'm not, I didn't,
You weren't at the
didn't-
first hearing.
I actually listened to the tape, but I really think, I didn't go to the site visit, so I just think it's more appropriate for Robbie to be on this one.
All right, Robbie, you're up. Okay, so just to do a little summary here, when we last talked about this, you were going to go back and have your architect look at lowering the ridge line. We received plans today. Can we take a look at those and maybe start by having you walk us through that?
Sure.
Awesome. All right.
Do you want me to bring up the plans or would you like to?
No, it would be great if you could.
Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so you can see that we lowered the ridge by 3 feet. And there's actually 2 different sets of drawings there. There's a
So we have
3.1, I think a 3.2, but
so
I mean-
that's the before. We can just go with before
sure.
and after.
Right. So, I told you that I would try and lower the ridge. Honestly, I'm not happy with the proportions of the building at this point. I'm not going to go through all this and build something that I don't personally like. So, what I would ask is that I would be permitted to build a house within the parameters that maybe you guys lay out for me so that I don't have to keep going back to the drawing board every time. So we were at 30 feet or what was it? Maybe Elizabeth, you know better. But this right here shows the height of the ridge reduced by 3 feet. We thankfully, and thank you to the cemetery committee, have been now supported by all the abutters. And, we continue to want to be good neighbors and we want to, take another look at the whole style of the house and maybe try and figure out how to, get the ridge even lower, honestly. I mean, I'm not deaf, so I understand the concerns of all of the people, including Paul Cook, who did not sign the letter that was sent to you guys from the cemetery committee. But, I was exasperated when I received his letter, after I thought that everybody was more or less on the same page. So, I felt compelled to write a letter that addressed all of the issues from our perspective. And I'm sure that you guys have all read that letter and there's no need to beat a dead horse. But I'm not happy with the proportions of the house. I'm okay with, keeping it down 3 feet. The cemetery committee is on board with a $3,000 check we're offering to give them to plant trees and provide irrigation until they get established. And we're trying to do the right thing. I understand that there are a lot of people who are outraged by the box store fence and our luxury home, but these are subjective comments and we would like to try and, get to some kind of conclusion here. And honestly, the town was notified as one of the abutters. I'm not sure whether the cemetery committee was notified, whether that went into their inbox or not. But I'm trying to work with everybody. I can appreciate everybody's position. We want to try and lower the house. We want to try and redesign the house within parameters that we can all agree on. So I guess that's my position.
So your proposal here would be you were in agreement with it being lower, but you don't like this design. So you'd like us to say.
I don't want to keep going back to the drawing board. I'm not going to do something awful. I'm going to try to talk to the architect. Maybe we can figure it out with, dormers on the far side so that, we get the proportions back to a modern farmhouse, which is the style that we were trying to achieve. I mean,
I'm just
we
trying to
were
lay
working
out
on the
what-
Shattuck. We were trying to go for the Queen Anne. So we
Yeah.
did that.
I get
Now
it.
we're trying to do a modern farmhouse.
Sorry, can I just finish one thing?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is kind of define where we're trying to go with, if we get to an approval. So
Yeah.
my question to you was, so the issue you have with the proportions is not that it's lower, it's that just how it affects the whole proportion of this specific design. So in terms of-
Exactly. So, and we want to plant the trees, and we want to remain on the same footprint. And, we may change the ridge, or we may change the roof a little bit by having maybe dormers so that we can, lower the eave of the roof without changing the look of the west elevation, which is really the elevation that we're the most concerned. I'm concerned with all the elevations, but
Okay.
honestly, we just want it to be a house that we're excited about. And right now, it is we're no longer excited about it, because we feel that the architectural compromises that we've had to make no longer make the house palatable to us.
Well,
And so therefore, we would like to, have you guys say, okay, you've lowered it 3 feet. You've given the cemetery the money for the trees. You've made every effort that you can to try and, work with the community here. And so if you can build the house, whatever it is, so that it's at, 27 feet or, whatever you guys decide tonight, we'd like to go forward with it. But, to constantly keep rehashing old ground just doesn't make any sense to me.
I will say that I am also not deaf. I get it, but I'm just trying to see how we can possibly get there. So let's open it up to board comment and questions, because I think that's the first place to start. Theo, looks like you unmuted yourself.
I appreciated the effort of reducing the ridge line, and this is exactly why, when you asked in the last meeting, said, "But give me a number, give me a target." I didn't want to give you a target, because if I would have said 4 feet, you would have been even more unhappy. So
I'm never unhappy.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you would have, it would have. Anyway, so and indeed, I think it benefits everybody that the building that is being built is going to be a good looking building, and so that's why I didn't want to tell you, or didn't want to give you just a number. I want you to get an architect involved, and that builds a nice building, because as everybody knows and everybody agrees upon, this building will be seen from the cemetery. And if you have to see it, you might as well look at something that's good looking. So I'm perfectly fine if I don't know how we would go about that with giving you parameters on what we would like to see, but I'm open to the board, but open to any suggestions from the board here.
Yeah, Theo, I'm on the same page. If there's a mechanism to do that, Elizabeth, we're maybe jumping ahead of ourselves a little, but Elizabeth, I think in the past, people have worked with you to have them kind of things end up in the parameters that we're laying out. So I just put that out there as a potential solution.
So both the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board have, over time, it comes down to a condition that whether it's, this would be the approved plan, but there would be a condition that would allow modifications to, if the roof height got even lower, or what it comes down to is that those changes would be made and to be submitted to myself and the building commissioner, and so that they are found in substantial conformance is the terminology that's used. So if it's, the roof getting lower, or The materials, are generally the same. So, right now it's showing as, different types of clapboards and brick, and it doesn't, turn into an all glass building so that's, and, we talked about, addition of dormers to allow the ridge, what you said,
Pitch of
dormers
the
to allow
roof.
the ridge to get lower.
The pitch of the roof. So we could bring the pitch of the roof back to a 12-12 instead of a 9, whatever it is. So you see the elevation that you're looking at right now? Each one of those windows would have a little dormer over it, so that instead of having just be a straight gable end going all the way across the building, we might lower the eave of the roof so that there's a dormer that's developed over each of the windows, or something to that effect. I mean, it's just the building, the proportions just don't feel right to me, and they don't feel right to my architect either, to be honest with you. And we're just trying to, come up with something where you guys can say, okay, you stick to 27 feet or, whatever it is, and like you said, there's no major changes. It's not going to be an all glass house. It's going to still basically have the same elevations. It's, it's.
So to your question, Elizabeth, that's a condition that both boards have used in the past for other residential projects.
Great. Okay, so Theo, I think that answers both your and my question, maybe others, that there is a mechanism to do this without it going back.
Yeah, that's good. And I also then quickly, the applicant here mentioned, because he was mentioning dormers, and I was having trouble envisioning dormers in this roof, but I now get it, what he was after.
Well, the architect probably won't agree with me either. Sorry.
No. I was thinking like dormers in your roof, not the windows as you now have pretty much sticking into the roof. Yeah. So that's what. I can see where you're at, because a month, we gave you a month time to come back here with revised elevations, and it's quick turnaround time. So I totally get where you're coming from on that one.
Let me Jim, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, are you saying that I understand exactly what you're trying to do here. But I'm just going to ask the question for what the envelope we're working with. So is it reasonable to say that you're willing to stick within effectively the same on the ground footprint that you've proposed here, and within the height that you've proposed here, and use basically the same construction materials you've proposed here? But you may come back with a different design around that. Is that essentially what we're talking about? I mean, because I think that the issue goes, the issue goes to, if you left it to be whatever it is, 27 feet, but then suddenly it was 15 feet wider, maybe it's a different, question. Yeah, I'm just making stuff up. So I'm just trying to but I'm really trying to understand what the parameters you're asking for from the board to design within. That's my point.
So before you answer that question, I can give you an example previously. So what it would be is that, the footprint of the building would stay the same, and the substantial conformance would, allow, dormers for the second story window, modification of, placement of windows has been, something else.
Roof
and
pitch.
It would be the same footprint, within the same dimensions, height, but to allow some
leeway.
Architectural elements can be modified if they're found in substantial conformance. Does that answer your question, Jim?
Well, if that's what the applicant's looking for, I mean, I'm certainly think that is a very reasonable request. And I agree that it's, in my experience on various of these boards over the years, I think I've seen many times where that's been granted, because obviously there's going to be, we can't just keep coming to a public hearing every time you're making that change at this stage.
So is the answer yes? Basically what Elizabeth laid out is what you're looking for?
Yes,
Okay.
precisely.
Okay. Anyone else? Ravi, did you have any comments? No? Okay. I am going to open it up to public comment, understanding that we have heard a lot. What we have listened, we've read everything, and we understand the issues that are out here. So if I could ask people to condense their comments, that would be great. And let me go ahead and open this.
Peter Lee, may I speak?
Yes. If you could just give your
to save time, can I just check, have you received my letter yesterday, and has the board read it already? Because if so, I can
Yes, we have. Sorry, can you just give your address for the record?
Peter Lee, 140 Walden Street, Concord.
Okay, so the answer is yes, we have.
Thank you. So let me just then cut to the chase, which I focused on a review of the bylaw 6.11, because I detected last meeting in February some talk about balancing individual versus public rights. And I think that the issue of 6.11, when it pertains to a historic landmark like Sleepy Hollow, is quite different than the normal application for a special permit. In most special permits, you have neighbors' rights, you have specific things that you're balancing. Here, the public interest is kind of vague, but it's really all the stakeholders of Sleepy Hollow. It goes far beyond neighbors. And some people have commented on this, but let me just summarize that really it's not just that this is a beautiful, peaceful site, a historic landmark. It's that it is connected to the core of important part of what we define as Concord, which is our connection to history, to the revolution, to the transcendentalist movement. So much of that is captured at Sleepy Hollow, and so much of it is a draw for all the visitors we have to Sleepy Hollow, both in Concord and nationally and internationally. So I think that this connection is partly why many of us have moved to Concord. I moved here about 20 years ago, and I was aware of this. And this was a draw for me versus other towns around Boston. 6.11 really does not talk about any balancing of public versus individual rights. All it is for this board, the ZBA, to make a determination, a factor determination of two things. One is, what is the possible detriment to the public interest, in this case, Sleepy Hollow? And on the other side, what is the added benefit of the project? If you just go through that list, then you are excluding a lot of the factors which you are discussing, which is fine. You need to address holistically everything. But 6.11, your role really is just to make that determination. Is there a detriment? How much? Is it substantial? Is there added benefit from the project to the Sleepy Hollow public interest? And I would say that if you just look at all the comments from others last month, the detriments are very easy to list. The house is imposing, has an imposing height. Instead of one house, now there are two houses. And the new house is on the top of the hill, and it is very high. 3 feet down is not enough. It is still an imposing structure. So you can say that, okay, the detriment is, there is a detriment, but it's not huge for me. It's huge for somebody else. It's rather small for me, that's fine. Secondly, you have a road.
Can I ask a question? You're referencing 6.11?
Yes. No, it's 11.6, he means.
I'm sorry.
You mean 11.6?
I apologize, 11.6.
Okay. No, I'm like.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I might make some other mistakes. Do go ahead and correct me. I am not a professional. So as far as I read it, it's really just on those two things, which is the public interest balance. And if there is any detriment that's significant, and no one asserts that there is not a detriment here, right? You have a big structure, higher than before, and now you have two, and it's imposing on the views here. The benefits, I don't think anyone has asserted a public benefit with respect to the Sleepy Hollow. I mean, the neighbors have no objections. The neighbors have, that's fine. If I were a neighbor, I may not object either. It's a fine design. Other commentators, the architects think it's a very good design. I don't doubt it. The owners have been accommodating. They've offered to pay for tree plantings, very commendable. I think they're very fine people. But I think that that's not relevant to your decision. Your decision is a simple factual determination. And if you find that there is detriment and there's not a public benefit to all that Sleepy Hollow represents to its stakeholders in town and nationally, what draws us here, what gives us pride, then I think 11.6 just says, okay, you made that determination, there is detriment, and you shall reject the special permit. The only way to avoid that conclusion is a different factual balancing. The way you change that balancing is what the owner is now proposing, making some changes. I don't think that dropping 3 feet from a 27-foot structure near the fence changes very much. It helps a little, it doesn't change very much. Okay, so now I had just one other point to make on procedure, which again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I take it that it is acceptable to take one dwelling and build a second dwelling as long as you get a special permit and the town will grant it. So if I should take my 4-car garage and replace it with a dwelling with, as the owner here has done, a small house, that will be approved. Now, if that's true, that's fine. But if it's not true, then I think that you need to think hard about that. And lastly, I'm not clear from the 2 letters submitted by the cemetery committee. It seems that the chair and vice chair did not receive formal notification as an abutter. And I wonder if that's because there's a different procedure when there is a committee versus a landowner. That is, wouldn't you have sent a notice to them back in September, October, so they could have prepared themselves for their own public hearings of stakeholders? Instead of finding out informally, and I see from Mr. Cook's letter, he found out in January or February, and from Ms. Solomon's letter, she found out informally as well. And if so, then I also heard at the cemetery committee meeting last week that there was someone said that Mr. Cook said that when he found out about this in February, he tried to call an emergency meeting. That meeting did not happen, but the meeting of last week did happen. At the meeting, he asked the members, have you read the public letters, comments about the importance of Sleepy Hollow? And the other members said no, they were not aware of it. So I think that they found out about this late in the process, is my impression. If so, I just wonder if that's the right mechanism for ZBA and the cemetery committee and the butter to be interacting when we have such an important, this is one of the most important historic sites of Concord. And we cannot just treat this as another house project next door to me, for example, where neighbors may object. This is not neighbors. This is about the core identity of Concord, of what we are proud of. And in fact, it's a source of a tourism industry that is economically beneficial to the town as well. This, I think, is a huge thing for Concord, and I really do hope that you stick to a very rigorous analysis of the public interest. I am sorry to the landowner. I sympathize. If I were him, I would not be very happy because he did have a very attractive design, and I'm sorry that he has to go through this. But I think that that is not your job to look at his issue. You want to help him, you should help him, but let's make sure that the public interest is fully protected. And when you make a factual determination under 11.6, you do it rigorously, and that it really is in the public interest with respect to the historic site and the ambience of Sleepy Hollow as it impacts all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
I would also like to make a comment. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. Could you introduce yourself and say your address?
Sure. My name is Nancy Frisella Lee. I live at 140 Walton Street, and I will make my comments brief, I promise. I know I've spoken before. And I just want to reiterate, I've tried at every meeting I've tried really hard to not make this personal to the owner. And I want you to take that to heart. I really mean that. I am a lifelong art historian and work in preservation. And that's where what my point of view is. And if people don't speak up to protect our resources, someone has to stand up for these things. Otherwise, they will go under the radar. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of people don't like the historic district rules. They can be daunting, but they're there for a reason. And that's a difficult situation too, but I really wish this was under that preservation, because they have guidelines that they have to follow. And I think some of the elements of this design of this development plan would not be approved by that. And they could have been early on in the project. If there were a fuller discussion early on, maybe there would have been a more agreeable, amenable solution to everyone. So I just want to say that. And I want to also make a comment about the term luxury design. I don't mean that as a negative comment. I want everybody to be honest. I think in Concord, most of us live, this is a very affluent community. I would consider my house a luxury house. And so I just mean that's a marketing term that even realtors make. So that's not a derogatory term. And I really, honestly, I hope you take this to heart. I don't mean that as a negative comment. If this house and design were anywhere else, it would be fine. It's a great design. I wish I could build a new house like that myself. But this design has been made to maximize this property. And although the applicant has been applauded for trying to work with the committee and mitigating it, from the beginning, it didn't show sensitivity to that spot. And it's only because it's in that spot that I've spent so much time researching it. So that's, and it is not just that house has gone from what was a pool house to what it really is. And I don't feel like this has really been highlighted. It's really a second house that someone could live in. There are rooms for 6 cars on this property. There's a full-size studio, which is lovely again, but this is going to make a permanent mark on what has been a 200-year-old property that has not had this kind of strong impact. And so I really do wish the owner well, and I really hope that he takes my comments in the spirit that they're meant. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Heather, Elizabeth, you see anyone? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment. Let me circle back to the board. Thoughts? Just throw it open. Theo. You
Yeah,
unmuted?
I muted myself, but I was looking at Rob.
No, sorry.
So one, assuming that there is detriment to the cemetery, as Mr. Lee just mentioned, the public benefit, does that have to then also go to the cemetery? Does benefit, the detriment and the benefit need to lie both in the cemetery property, or can the benefit lie somewhere else in somebody else's property?
I think it talks about the bylaw talks about the public interest as well as the town and the neighborhood. So, I think it's not just about public interest, which again, I don't think one citizen can speak on behalf of the public interest. I think we've heard from many members of the public, many of them favorable to the project, the cemetery committee itself saying they are unopposed to the project and probably being the most direct representative of the cemetery. So I do think we have input from both sides of the spectrum, and we're not in a position where we're just looking at detriment only here. The other factors, there's specific reference in the bylaw to the tax base. This will help the tax base of the town. That's a benefit. You know, I spoke about the benefit at the last meeting. I think this is what was being referred to of, you know, a private citizen being able to develop their property. You know, I think in many of these cases where we're looking at a special permit, that's the only benefit we're talking about. They're not doing something to improve the town for the general public. So that cannot be the standard that we have to find under 11.6. And I think in the public interest and in the sort of founding principles of this country, if we want to go back to history, you know, it is in the public interest that we are a country where government cannot step in and stop you from doing what you want on your land. So we have to be very careful about us as a board purporting to do that. So I think we do appreciate that there is a view that there are downsides to this, that there is sensitivity, and that there is, you know, that there is a special place we're talking about here with Sleepy Hollow. And, you know, I think that the response is, you know, what the board can do when there is a project by right that could have even worse impact is we work with the applicant to try and mitigate where, you know, screening and reduction of height are kind of the two main things that we can do to make this less impactful to the feeling and the view from the cemetery. And I think both those things have been done here. We've drawn this process out for quite a while and really honed in on those and gotten them, I think, farther than I thought would even be possible. So I feel that we have made a lot of progress and improved the project in that way from where it was when we started. So, you know, those are my thoughts.
Ravi, I absolutely agree with you. Well said. I think we've thought about it. We've pushed this. I think enough is enough, honestly. I agree with you. I'm pleasantly surprised that the applicant was willing to go back and I'm very cognizant of the fact that things can be done by right here. So the fact that we're all working together, I think, is definitely to the benefit of the public in general. So I'm with you, Robbie.
And, you know, and I said this before a bit earlier that, you know, this building, this home will be seen from the cemetery property. But, you know, it's going to be a nice building. And I don't think that's, I mean, it will have impact, visual impact on the cemetery, but I'm not sure, you know, in my view, and I'm, you know, come from a design background, don't think that, you know, having an impact is necessarily a bad thing. Having a visual impact can be an improvement. And in this case, where the second story of the first house, the current house, is being taken off, which I think architecturally is not nearly going to be nearly as nice as the proposed house. I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah. Hey, Ray, just out of curiosity, how much over the 50% are we here?
21%, I think.
21, was it 500 square?
I think maybe it's a little bit more.
Okay.
We're allowed to go to 5513 and we're proposing 6277.
Okay.
So about,
So 55 would be by right.
right.
Okay.
5513 by right.
All right.
It's less than the example that is given in the manual. I think the example that was in the manual, you know, that shows you how to figure it out was 83% or something like that. I think we're 20% over. We're 72% instead of 50%, something like that. I'd have to look it up.
764 square feet.
764. Okay. Any other thoughts, Jim? So I would be comfortable with what we talked about, which is giving some parameters and giving Elizabeth kind of the final say in a way of if it's within substantially with the whatever the words you said, substantially within the approved.
Well, it's it's not just me. Ray gets to be
And
involved. in this too.
Ray. Do it too.
And so just writing conditions on the flies is also always challenging. But the proposed project shall be in substantial conformance with the approved plans. In any decision, the board lists the plans that are part of the approval with the dates. The applicant shall be permitted to make minor modifications to architectural elements such as addition of second floor window dormers, modification to window placement upon the review and approval by the building commissioner and town planner.
Did you say roof pitch? Roof pitch was something you mentioned too, right?
Well, no, well, I'll ask so that with the pitch of the roof, the roof would not be getting any taller. It would just be getting steeper because the
eave would be lowered.
The eave is lower. So
I just mentioned that, so I wanted to put that in. And the other things we had talked about, planting on the other side of the cemetery, that's not within our jurisdiction. So, but it sounds like you're getting somewhere with the cemetery committee and.
Yeah, no, we have talked to, I think Andrea Solomon is on the line. She could chime in if she wants. We've talked to the cemetery committee and, they sent you the letter. They're 4-1 in favor. And we want to give the money to the cemetery because we think that planting some nice bushy white pine trees down in the cemetery is going to be in our best interest also. We just want to do the right thing. That's all.
So, Elizabeth, the board cannot
condition anything on that.
Condition somebody that they have to make offsite improvements.
Yep.
But should the board move forward with a decision for approval, part of your findings, you can include the statement that the applicant has indicated and discussed with the cemetery committee, assisting with the cemetery committee for the planting of landscaping and irrigation on, it's, and I'll correct some of the questions. It is not cemetery property on town land. And the cemetery does not control that property. The town controls that property through the Concord Public Works Department as the town entity that is responsible for the maintenance of it. And the cemetery committee helps guide the long-term maintenance upkeep for that
It would
property.
ultimately be Public Works that is.
But you can include in your findings that the applicant has indicated that he will be assisting the cemetery committee through the Public Works department on the additional plantings on town land and providing irrigation until they're established.
Great. Robbie and Theo, is that you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think it's germane to the findings, and I think there's been other things germane to the findings that have been discussed in the prior meetings as well. But that's certainly an important one.
I agree. Are we at the point where we want to?
Well, no, I actually have one more potential condition that I want to run by you all, and that is back to the architecture. It's the south elevation of the biggest structure, which is this. That's not the main house, I don't think it is, but the south elevation is all shingled. It's a relatively simple elevation, all shingled.
Oh yeah, perfect.
There it is. Excellent, excellent. Yep, and it's just sort of the main, not that piece, the other piece that's facing that piece. That's all. It's very simple elevation that's by the hatch that's on it seems to be indicated as a cedar shingle. And correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's correct.
I would like it to state, even because we're giving you a little bit of leeway here to work things out with Elizabeth and Ray, but I would like this elevation to remain simple and in cedar shakes, because this is one of the elevations that's been will be most visible from the cemetery, and I don't want to call attention to it, if you will. So if you
I
can,
agree. I agree. I
if you can-
agree with that, and I'm willing to accept that as being one of the preconditions. Like I said before, I want to do the right thing, and I agree with you. That's why we made it simple. That's why the whole building is designed the way it is to try and have very clean lines and good proportions. So that's what we're going to try and work on.
All right.
Good.
I'm fine with that. I mean, going forward, there's no way for us to enforce that on someone who moves in after the fact, right? But you're happy for now.
I'm happy, and at least we're starting off on the right foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that, putting that in as a condition. Robbie, is that good? All right. So now are we ready for a motion? Don't get too excited.
I'm looking at Ravi, but
Andrea actually has something to say also. I think she's got her hand
I see a
raised.
hand up. Yeah,
Close
that's right.
public comment, and we're about to do a motion. So if we can just go ahead and do a motion, that would be great. Someone wants-
I make a motion for Commons and Newberry LLP to issue a special permit under sections 713, 715, and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw to demolish a 1974 square foot of an existing 3,675 square foot dwelling and convert it to an accessory structure, and to construct a new 4,585 square foot dwelling that is over 50% larger than the existing gross floor area on a non-conforming lot at 18 Windmill Hill Road, parcel 1225, with the conditions as we just ran through, and findings. That's where I would like some help with, since I'm not a lawyer.
I mean, I think we made the necessary findings under 7.1.5 and 11.6, and have discussed those in some detail. I know that some of that detail is in the minutes that we are going to be approving later tonight, and I would expect further detail is going to be set out in tonight's minutes as well. I think there was one other condition I saw from Public Works about stormwater, which I assume will also be included.
So I can elaborate on that one. So the engineering division did review the drainage, and they are recommending that there be a condition that a stormwater drainage plan be submitted and reviewed by them for all of the impervious area, up at the top, the driveway and the garage area. But I did speak with the assistant town engineer today, and he would ask if it would be possible for the board to include a condition that the grading plan shows the finishing off of a berm on the right side of the driveway along the property line where the fence is. Ask that part of the grading be finished and that berm be finished prior to, let's say May 1st, if that's possible for the applicant. He feels that given the current grading and conditions, that there could be stormwater runoff into the cemetery, unless that piece of it is done, now before a lot of the work gets going.
Okay, is that all right with the applicant? Can we get that?
You bet.
All right. So,
Absolutely. Not a big deal. It's pretty much all there already right now.
great. All right, so we'll add that as condition. Your condition about the shingle, on the gable end there.
Yeah, that remains a simple shingled elevation.
Do we get everything?
So,
Maybe we should
well,
continue this until our next hearing. No.
I'll second.
Let's vote.
Okay, right.
Excuse me, isn't the additional dwelling unit part of this permit too, because it's a non-conforming lot?
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's got the right, I'm sorry, I apologize. He's
No,
got the
you're-
proper, he's got
no,
the
you're
proper
right.
area. And
Yeah, I think he meets
he's
the.
he's
or he
not
doesn't need
conforming by
special.
frontage. So he's all set. Sorry about that.
I
Sorry,
think
Tom.
you're right, no, I had the same moment as you, but I
Yeah,
figured it out too. Yeah, I think we're good.
The
We
additional,
talked about it being separated with a wall and not a door. We did all this, right?
Yeah.
so the additional dwelling unit is less than 750 square feet.
Great. All right.
The horse is dead. Let's see if we can
Do I have a
vote.
second? Is that Robbie?
Yeah, I second.
All right,
So-
all in favor, Mr. Faya,
Aye.
Mr. Kindermans,
Aye.
Ms. Akers Moore, aye. Thank you.
And
I think we all tried to get everyone to be somewhat happy, which I know we haven't completely succeeded at, but we've done as much as I think that we all think we had the right and ability to do. So thank you for participating in all of this with us.
Thanks again. It's really been great. Really appreciate it.
Now it's been great.
No, it was always great. Come on. Got to meet a lot of nice people here in town, and I thank you guys for putting up with me for all this time.
All right,
yeah,
thank you.
and my hope is when the fence weathers and the screening is up and the beautiful house is on the hill and the top of the other one is taken down, it'll just look like it's always meant to be there, and will become part of the town just like all the other pieces around it.
Great.
And in 200 years, they won't let anyone else tear it down.
Because it'll be historic. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on to our next 7:30 p.m. Concord Country Club. Another easy one here. Hi, Paul.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like to catch us up to date?
Yeah. So for the record, my name is Paul Kirchner from Stamp C. McNary. We're the engineers for this project. I think we're all pretty familiar with the project at this point. The Country Club is proposing to construct an irrigation pond as part of a larger project to improve their overall irrigation system at the property. Since our last meeting before the board, we did have the word is escaping me right now, an expert on groundwater hydrology created a report that was presented to the Public Works Commission to essentially describe how this project will not have a negative impact on the town's water supply. As part of that meeting that they attended with the Public Works Commission, the commission did suggest that a monitoring well be installed between the country club's wells and the town's wells, so that basically we can check on it and make sure that we know how the country club's wells are impacting the town's wells. Additionally, since that time, we did receive some comments from the engineering department. We have addressed them. We did get a letter the other day back from them, basically saying, okay, it looks good. Those changes were related to increasing the size of our proposed infiltration basin as part of our stormwater management system, incorporating a slide gate into the pipe that the outlet pipe from the irrigation pond to the infiltration basin, and a couple of other more minor points, but those are the most substantive, at least in my eyes. So, as it relates to the special permit request, you know, there are a number of things that we can talk about here, and I'm sure we'll go through them in great detail this evening. However, I'll just go over the main points in section 11. Economic impacts. The site's a golf course now, or a country club. It's going to remain a country club. So there will be no substantial change to the economic impact on the town. As we've demonstrated in Peter Nelson's report, this may actually result in may have a positive impact on the town's water supply, as for one, there will be a monitoring well in place to see what's going on, so that if there is any problem at some point, we will be aware of it. And then related to that, this irrigation pond is expected to make this irrigation system more efficient, as it will allow the course to essentially be irrigated more quickly, so there's not as much continuous demand placed on the existing wells. Traffic impacts, we aren't proposing any change to the use of the property. So naturally, during construction, there will be more workers at the site, but once the project has been completed, there will be no changes to the traffic coming or going to the site. Public utilities, the country club utilizes their own wells, so there won't be, in terms of water demand from the town of Concord's water supply, that will not be increased. Everything will remain private. I guess I'm gonna jump ahead here, because I think that one of these points will take a bit longer. Impacts to the natural environment. The project does require clearing of some woodland. However, we are outside of all areas within the jurisdiction of the Natural Resources Commission. As you may remember, there was a slight encroachment within the 200-foot riverfront area. However, that has since been addressed really last summer. Some plantings were put in to address that, and the club received an order of conditions from Natural Resources, and that has been taken care of. Fiscal impact to the town, again, potentially because this should increase the efficiency of the irrigation system, it may ultimately benefit the town's water supply. But as a whole, there's no proposed change to the use of the property, so this isn't going to create additional jobs long term, but that's because we aren't proposing any change like that. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the impacts on the neighborhood. Yes, a substantial change to the topography of the work area is proposed. That is just the nature of the project that we are trying to permit with you. A lot of earthwork will be required to move the dirt around. However, we have revised the application since we initially submitted it back in September to eliminate further removal of soil from the site. So I know it still says in the agenda that we're proposing a removal of 19,000 cubic yards. Again, we have eliminated that. We aren't trying to remove anything from the site. At this point, we are still required to obtain a special permit for the earth removal, because there was an unpermitted removal of about 1,200 cubic yards. So we are still here for the earth removal special permit, but we aren't aiming to do any more. To sort of finish up with that point, the tree clearing is located a minimum of 130 feet plus from any adjacent lot line. So it is a fairly generous setback. As a side note, not that this is directly applicable to this particular project, but in the zoning bylaw, the maximum setback to property lines that I could find was 100 feet, and that was generally related to like a limited business district to a residential district, and that's really for structures which we aren't. I think the bulk of the impact of this project is the pond itself, which isn't really a structure, but I think that's important issue to raise. Further, you know, that 130-foot setback is important to the direct abutters themselves, but for just other residents of Concord driving along Williams Road, the limit of this tree clearing is over 500 feet from the Williams Road right of way, and that's just scaled off of Google Earth, but it is a fairly generous setback from the public right of way. So I don't know if Greg, you wanted to add anything, or Peter, feel free to jump in, otherwise we can take any questions.
Well, thank you. I think Paul has answered a lot of the stuff. We reviewed the letter that came in yesterday from the town. We've obviously we've been working with all the different towns and the committees and Department of Public Works and our outside the hydrogeologist to ensure that what we were doing was going to benefit not only the club but the town as well, and not impact the town well supply and the drinking water. We wanted to be sure of that. The sustainability moving forward, where we're gathering the water, this does benefit both sides, us as well. We're trying to be good stewards of the community in that area. So we have been working at this. Again, we started out a little bit rocky at the beginning, but we're really moving forward to try to make everybody happy with this, and we'll hope you'll support the work that we've been doing. I can answer some questions if you have any specific questions. Paul and I can answer.
Okay, thank you. I kind of want to just break this down into portions because there's so many moving parts. So Elizabeth, you wouldn't mind helping me out here. Where did she go? Is she gone? There she is. Hi. Because we've gotten a lot of comment and there's been a lot of back and forth, I just want to kind of separate it. We have the NRC who is involved, and now what we've heard for the applicant is that that issue has been put to bed and that NRC is now kind of out of this. Am I right in that?
Well, we haven't, we have not received a revised letter from the Natural Resources Commission since their letter in October.
Okay, which I don't remember what that was.
So laid out
Pull that up.
3 concerns. One, that they have a third-party reviewer, as far as the public water supply impacts, and I believe that has been handled through Concord Public Works, the Water and Sewer Division, and the hydrogeologist that they hired. The second comment was that they clear-cut nearly 4 acres of mature wooded upland for the proposed irrigation pond. And the design of the pond has been substantially reduced from the prior application, and the area of cleared woodland is proposed to be loamed and seeded. A plan to restore the cleared areas to its former woodland condition should be submitted for review and approval. And then it notes that the soil suitability forms in the application note that the current water resource conditions are normal, although the USGS drought monitor maps for June and July. Concord is in an abnormally dry region. And I don't see where that's a substantial difference. Water and Sewer has had extensive review with the applicant's hydrogeologist. So,
okay, so
I wasn't aware that, Paul, that you actually had to file for a notice of intent.
So we did file for the notice of intent quite a while ago at this point. The the work permitted by that notice of intent was really just limited to plantings along the 200-foot riverfront area boundary. When the country club originally cleared the area, I believe, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe the minimum setback to Duggan Brook was about 197 feet, where 200 feet was required. So there was some planting done to fill that in. So none of the work that we are proposing at this point is within that 200-foot riverfront area. And we did get the permit to fix that problem within natural resources jurisdiction.
So that would be the limitation on that end. I think the letter that the board received was from the natural resources director, and her initial comment was that 4 acres of woodland, upland woodland, that was removed. And
Okay.
I don't believe, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, with the redesign of the irrigation pond, would that removal of that 4 acres of wooded upland be required at this point?
Yeah, so I believe at the time of this this letter from Delia, about 4 acres of trees have already been cleared. It says something on the plan, I believe it's about 160,000 square feet, so just below 4 acres, but we are proposing some additional tree removal so that we are able to construct an infiltration basin as part of the stormwater management system. So also we do include a note on the plan that all the areas that are identified in the plan shall be planted with a native seed mix approved by Natural Resources. You know, in this case, given the project purpose, which is to construct this irrigation pond, returning the site to mature woodland isn't really practical for a number of reasons. One, because a large portion of the area will be occupied by this irrigation pond itself, and on top of that, it's generally not wise to plant trees within a berm, especially of this size, because ultimately with deep root systems of trees, it will compromise the integrity of this berm. On top of that, on the high side of the pond, you don't want debris falling into the pond at an excessive rate that it will cause a problem eventually with the pond and the pumps.
Okay. Just separate out again. I just kind of want to make this very clear. So Elizabeth, what you were saying is this is a letter from Delia in October saying about the third-party reviewer, which you say has been to evaluate the proposed system and potential impacts on nearby public water supplies. That has been done by water.
Yep, so the applicant hired a hydrogeologist,
right,
and did a report which is included in the public record and is what is referenced by the Water and Sewer Division and their recommended conditions. They met quite a few times with the applicant and the hydrogeologist to go over that report and come to that consensus and agreement as far as the impacts of the project and those conditions of approval.
Okay. And then speaking from number 2, the applicant is saying it's not in the NRC's jurisdiction, and Elizabeth, you're saying it may not be, but this is from Delia saying it's a recommendation.
So that was the reason for my question, and so I don't know, Paul, if I think part of it is the plans only show a very limited area of a very large property. So I don't know if I bring up the town's GIS that has the aerial photo, Paul, if it would be helpful for the board from an aerial view, kind of see the area that the 4 acres of woodland was removed in relationship to the actual location of the pond.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have it pulled up on my end if you want me to, because I can kind of scroll around. On top of that, Google Earth did recently update their aerial imagery, so I think looking at that will be very helpful. So let me try to figure this out. Should probably have my browser on the right screen. Okay, this is Delia's letter from months ago. So this is an aerial photo just so we can see property lines more clearly. I'll go back to the base map. So let me highlight it so we can see it. There's the country club property. Here's Route 2. So I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll get rid of the highlights so we can see it better. The area we're talking about is right around here. So zoom in further and further. Here's Williams Road. Here is the proposed pond location right here. And I will show you Google Earth. This was the old picture. And here it is now. So this is the area we are proposing a slight or additional tree cutting right in here. But I don't have the number offhand, but when compared to the overall project site, it is a relatively small increase in cleared area.
Okay. Have the other board members, I know we were given an abutters information about going to visit the site. I don't know if anyone has visited the site. I have visited the site. I will just say that it is very visible and there is a lot of cleared land that is incredibly visible from the abutters, and it has made a huge impact. So I would say that when we're talking about this, the idea of restoration and doing something about the screening is important in my mind. I'll just put that out there and let me ask where the board wants to go from here.
I did have one question about the stormwater, because it's talking about, you know, if there's a reduction in peak flow versus the pre-development. And is that pre-development measured against, you know, what's on the ground today, or measured against before the clear cutting and the initial regrading was done?
Yep, so we did evaluate based on the true pre-development before any tree clearing was done. So this tree line that we show on the plan was actually taken from aerial imagery, a bit conservative, made it maybe a bit larger than it actually is, but it's pretty close to correct. And then I could show you our stormwater management report. I had to use the town GIS to figure out the topography because it had been altered, but we were analyzing what was there before and not it was there after the trees were cut. The comment by engineering or made by engineering regarding the increase in peak flow. To be honest with you, I intended in my narrative to say that we would have an increase of however many cubic feet per second, which would be 0.29% of the total peak flow for the 100-year storm. I failed to mention that that is for the overall watershed and not the project site itself. And the reason for that rationale originally was because the stormwater management standards do not require you to maintain or decrease peak flows for the 100-year storm. They just require you to ensure that you won't negatively impact downstream flooding. And that de minimis increase, I believe, does show that it won't cause a problem with downstream flooding. However, since that time, we did revise the plan to slightly reduce the size of the irrigation pond and therefore expand the size of the infiltration basin. So now no increase over the pre-development in terms of peak flow is proposed for any of the 4 design storms.
And then just, you know, back to some of the things we're going to have to find there was some mention in the narrative of the alternative pond locations that were considered. Could you go into a little more detail? The one that's kind of just maybe northeast of where it is now, in between the two holes, there was a comment that was unsuitable because it's up gradient from one of the holes. Like what's the concern about? What was the concern about putting it in that location, which is kind of at the top middle of your screen?
Yeah, right here. So it might be easy if I could show you that those alternative conceptual plans that we generated, which I don't have pulled up, so might have a bit of a problem here. Well, essentially, actually, go back to the base map. So I'm going to kind of have to go back and forth because can I show these both at the same time? It's a bit hard to see, but essentially this is the high point, or maybe not quite, but this is a bit lower. So in this location, the pond would sit down gradient of this hole right here, but it would be a bit higher than this hole. I wish I could show you that plan. I just don't have it readily available, and I don't want to click on something that I don't want to click on and show it to everyone. Not that I'm too worried about it, but it's a bit shaky. So yeah, I mean, just generally sitting in the middle of the golf course, it's not going to be as attractive right now. I mean, this is a wooded area, but it's manicured woodland, so it feels a bit more like an orchard. But with the holes down here, it is unattractive, but then practically, obviously, you know, the nature of our stormwater management design is to say if the pond does overflow, which the intent is to make sure that never happens, but that's what we designed for. If the pond does overflow, we're either going to be sending the water across the golf course, which is what would need to occur if we did that here, or we can send it more directly towards the wetlands, which is where the water would go ultimately anyway. The other couple of locations that we mentioned were right here. And this spot is difficult because there is a wetland right here, so we would fall within natural resources jurisdiction. Whereas previously I said that we kept the pond out of it over here. Other than that portion that we had to replant that we already took care of. And then the other alternative location I believe we proposed was up here because it is outside of the groundwater conservancy district. You see this is groundwater. So it is outside over here, but it's right along, I think this is Old Marlboro, right? Yes. So it's very close to the roadway. So that was pretty cut and dry why that's not an ideal location. Also, the septic system is somewhere over here, so it's pretty close. But
okay, that's helpful.
So I had some questions here. Like, how long has the golf course been in operation?
We've been here since 1923, 26.
When did this water deficiency become an issue?
The deficiencies, or when did we?
Yeah, when did you decide that you needed that the wells weren't sufficient? Didn't give you sufficient amounts of water during certain periods of the year?
Oh, a number of years ago. Many, you know, I don't have an exact date, but many years ago. So recently we've been, this year we're upgrading the system, the pipes in the ground, because those have been in the ground for over 20 years. So we've been upgrading that. And this is part of it, because to draw the water, that's been a problem. We've been directly drawing right out of the ground. through the wells, which has an impacting problem when we're pumping directly out of the ground to irrigating the golf course.
So when you're upgrading your irrigation system, are you upgrading other components other than the piping?
Yeah, well, the sprinkler heads, we're putting in new sprinkler heads, which would be, more energy efficient.
More water efficient?
They'll be spaced out so we can use less water and draw, call different levels of water, as opposed to just right now, we just kind of have to spray in larger areas, which, causes us to use more water in some cases than we need.
Right. So by these upgrades that you're making over the summer and the piping and the heads, and I would assume some controllers and maybe some software.
Correct.
You'll be reducing your water demand.
Correct. I mean, one thing too with golf courses too is to keep in mind that, golfers like golf courses to be dry and fast. So, they don't, we only water as we need to keep the plants alive. We're not overwatering. That's not what the superintendent or players or anybody wants to do. So, we're very conscious of how much water we use on a golf course.
Mm-hmm. Understood. I'm just kind of want to understand what's sort of behind this now needing an irrigation pond. Sort of what's the driving?
To be more efficient. So what we do now is we draw out of the ground directly, which takes us. So we have to run the pumps longer, and we draw, and then it takes us longer to irrigate the golf course. So by being able to put it into a holding pond essentially, and then pump out of that, keeps the water at a higher level. So when we're pumping it onto the golf course, we can be more efficient than opposed to taking it directly out of the ground and filling it up, and then the levels go up and down. So by having more water available, we can draw and use that on the system and keeping it filled, and then evenly disperse it, as opposed to pumping it directly out of the ground, which then takes longer to get it around the property.
I'm just not there yet. That I'm not getting that because you can pump more out of the ground and stick it in a pond, that therefore you're using less water. Is something I still need to wrap my head around. And also, if somebody could,
it's faster for you.
Excuse me?
Is that what they're saying? Is that you're using less water? Or it's just faster for you because you don't have to wait because you have it all there ready to go. I mean, it's the same.
Right. And but now they're restricted in the water use by what they can pump out, and that sets their limits. And by and that which and that this is the crux why from the beginning I've had just a hard time wrapping my head around this.
Well, our superintendent Peter Rapocho, the superintendent, he's on here, and I'll let him speak to that because he's the expert.
No, let me finish it for a second. What I've had from the beginning a hard time wrapping my head around is that you can't pump enough groundwater. So your groundwater levels, your wells telling you something, that there is not enough water. It's in my book, and therefore we're gonna build a pond so that we can pump longer and sort of avoid the limitations that the groundwater levels set on you, and just therefore pump more water out. And I'd love it if somebody could point me to the piece that from your geohydrologist where it says that this does not, in those words, does not have a negative impact on the town's wells, because I haven't found that that exact verbiage, and I would like I'd like to see that. And Yeah, so that's sort of where I am. I mean, there's a lot of comments and questions that I still have. I mean, you know, the first letter of your geohydrologist that was from May 27 of last year, when he suggests that having a pond is better for the groundwater than having a 4-acre feed stand, because that, you know, more trees would give you more evaporation. I know he kind of lost me at that point in time, and I haven't seen him come back to where he gave me confidence of what he's saying in his later communication that your pumping will not have a negative impact. It's just like and sorry for my rant here a little bit. It's also like the letter that you sent to us. This is the letter from Greg Cicada. It also says, we clearly say the impacts on economic or community needs. It's, you know, you stating that this project may benefit the community by reducing the current demands. And so I'm reading that and it's like, yeah, but it may not, you know, call me negative Nelly here, but, you know, I may just is in this case is not, it's just, yeah, it just does not give me enough to base a good, to base a good decision on. So, but I'll stop here for a while because I've been going on too much.
Robbie or Jim, do you have any?
I mean, I'm not an expert here, and I just sort of have to defer to, you know, either Teo or if, you know, Public Works or Water and Sewer have reached a conclusion and been satisfied with who the expert is and what that report says. And, you know, for me, I think I just have to rely on that expertise.
Jim, anything?
Well, I just feel, I guess, I guess I'd love to hear the public comment, but my overall thoughts here are that, you know, the applicant made a comment that we had a rocky start here, and I would say that's really the understatement of the day. I really do think that particularly institutions with the ability to hire adequate consultants and all that kind of stuff should not be putting the town in a position in which we start out with a violation of an earth removal. It's just not that hard, guys. I mean, you're not supposed to remove earth without a permit. We all know that. You're beyond a certain number. You did, and that really sets this entire, to my mind, it really sets this entire application in a bad light. Then there was an application to remove all sorts of additional earth, and it didn't stand up to the light of day in terms of the 4 feet distance from groundwater, which again, I think that if we're in the business of dealing with an irrigation pond, should be sort of the very first thing that people think about. And the fact that we had an earth removal violation, and then we had a series of applications that we couldn't even review as a town because of, you know, fundamental problems, is really, you know, I think that's sort of 2 strikes against this. And then the third is that there's all this removal of trees, and the proposal coming back is that maybe we're going to put grass in the ground. And I just think that once again, it's not being thoughtful to the fact that the golf course is very much a neighbor to the town. The town is a neighbor to the golf course. There's a lot of beauty from the golf course and a lot of benefit to the golf course to the rest of the town. But it just seems to me that there wasn't particularly thoughtful in terms of how we were going to treat the rest of the town, to suggest that we were, you're going to take a lot of trees out and you weren't going to sort of put them back in a way, or do a restoration that was better for screening, et cetera. And then the last thing is that, I feel like in this discussion that we're having here, and just recently had here, and I defer to Theo on it and in many respects, but that I don't feel like I have the information, and it may be here someplace, but I don't have the information to really understand that, how this does or does not benefit the town and its water supply and all that sort of stuff. I assume that part of it is a retention pond also retains rainwater, and that helps in terms of the system of relieving some pressure from the groundwater. But I'm struggling with how we as a board understand these things in a way that we can sort of verify what the applicant is saying, and that we can sort of have an independent view of what the applicant is saying. Because quite frankly, when the applicant starts out by violating the earth removal plan and providing a plan that didn't come close to the groundwater plan, it's really hard to rely on the applicant for other sorts of issues like hydrology, which I'll admit I have no understanding of whatsoever. So maybe that's my rant, but I just feel like I'm really feeling incapable of understanding exactly how all of this works and how it all puts together. And it just feels to me like that the applicant has done a good job of trying to address individual questions, but what I'm left with is a lack of knowledge of how the overall whole plan sort of works together, other than I didn't take the applicant, I didn't take the butters up on their thing to sort of visit from their particular site, but I've been by the site many times. I'm well aware of, walked that road, et cetera, et cetera. I'm well aware of what's going on there. And I agree with Elizabeth that this is a big impact on the community, and that I'm having a hard time struggling with how the benefit fits in. I'm not saying it can't be there. I just really am struggling with how to put all this together.
I agree with you, Jim, and I think it kind of goes to Ravi's point too about what were the alternatives looked at. We're looking at this after the fact is really difficult. And if you look at 7.5.3, this is all things that were to be considered before we decided to grant the permit or not. And now we're at it it's already been done. It puts us in a really bad position. A lot of these 7.5.3, almost all of them, these sections, I don't know how we would find that, affecting the rule will not be detrimental or injurious to abutters or the neighborhood, all of this. It's very difficult. Again, maybe I'm wrong and I'm not seeing how, but right now I'm having a real hard time with it as well. I
think, we want to follow up on what Jim just also said, indeed, that the applicant here worked extremely hard to get everybody their answers, but there is, but it's really to satisfy everybody's concerns. But I still, indeed, there is, to me, the hard and fast point, like, will you impact our water supply? I have not heard somebody say we will not, and until I mean, and that's I think is crucial for me.
Well, I think
it's just what Paul just said. That's like, Well, we'll be installing a monitoring well, so then we can see that when there is a problem. It's like, well, at that point in time, it's too late. You know, it's like who's monitoring that? What happens when? And that alludes to the fact also that we don't. I mean, we're taking a gamble here on whether it has an impact on our water supply or not.
Well, I think that, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's part of my job is to assist applicants and the board and facilitate projects moving forward, whether that's a positive or negative moving forward, but at least moving forward. And a public hearing is on factual items is not the place where those factual items should be debated. So what I'd probably like to recommend is that the applicant has their hydrogeologist, and the board has received input from Public Works, the Water and Sewer Division, and I think to have both of those entities come to the Board of Appeals meeting, and so that they can explain to you what their conversations were, what information they looked at, and what was the agreed upon outcome for the project. That would give the board the information they needed from the people who do know hydrology and do know the town's municipal water supply and what the project's impact would be.
Sounds reasonable to me. I'm not sure it's going to answer all of our questions, but we got to start somewhere. I mean, I agree with you. Unpacking this is really difficult. So the other side of the issues that have been raised as far as the earth removal. So the earth removal, while I agree, you're talking about correcting a violation. That violation is 200 cubic yards of earth. You're allowed to remove up to 1,000 cubic yards of earth, and they removed approximately 1,200 cubic yards of earth. So yes, but it's not all starting from the same point. They were planning on removing much more, and what was done, what needed to be done to remove 1,000 or even 1,200, I'm assuming is way different than what was done in anticipation of removing 19,000. So while if this were at the beginning of the process and they said they wanted 1,200, I agree, it will be a different discussion. It still would be a discussion in full about this site. Whereas now I feel, I guess I agree with Teo, we're getting at these little points, but it's not addressing the project as a whole, which we would have been if we had started from this initially. I would propose that we go look at this site also.
So what, and I'm not advocating one way or the other for the project. There's also, a level of reality outside of any type of buffer zone. And I'll have Ray chime in here as well. I'm not sure there's anything within the town's, whether it's zoning bylaw that says, a property owner can't just remove trees on their property because they don't want to pick up the leaves. So if, they're so I mean,
what's what would you say is the remedy? Let's say the permit isn't granted for the 1,200, right? What would you say the remedy is then for the permit violation? You got to go and find 200 yards and dump it back on the property?
No, that's where I think the difficulty for the board lies. It's not the removal of 1,200 cubic yards. 1,200 cubic yards does not have an impact on the neighborhood. 1,200 cubic yards doesn't create, traffic on streets. It's it's not much. But I think it's that remedy that becomes the issue. So, and to Elizabeth's point, part of the issue with the board trying to get their hands around this, and that was my question to Paul, if there had been no trees removed and there had been no earth removed, if they had come to the board with this application, because it's not just the earth removal, they need a special permit because it's a golf course in a residential zone district and expansion of that use. So construction of the irrigation pond and the pump house is an expansion of the use. They need a special permit. Would the area that has been cleared still be the same for this current design, which does not require any earth removal off the property? It requires a significant amount of earth to be moved, but there's no removal of earth off the property. I think the answer was that same area of upland, wooded upland, would be removed. So how would the board have gone about, dealing with that? As any other project, there has to be room to provide additional screening there. And, I'm not suggesting that you plant trees on the, upland slope around the basin of the irrigation pond, or, but, there's going to be leaves in that pond, but there has to be, so that might be a way for the board to kind of just start to think on how you can, wrap your head around this. But I do think for the hydrology side of things, that having the experts tell you what their conversations were and what their understandings and what they agreed upon as far as the impacts and whether this is a benefit or not to the public water supply.
So Elizabeth, you've done I would just jump in and say, I think you've done a great job of being far more articulate and measured than probably I was. But in one respect, you really are hit a very important point, which is that this project started back in the fall. It was a very different project than it is now. When we look through our materials, we have several months worth of correspondence and correspondence on top of correspondence and that sort of thing. And I think that what we're all feeling here is that we don't really have a sort of comprehensive and clear picture of what's going on. This is what the issue is, and why. Here is how we have addressed hydrology. Here is how we've addressed the groundwater conservancy district, if we have to or whatever. Here is what we're trying to do to minimize earth removal and certainly to minimize earth removal. And here is what we're trying to do to be able to try to be good neighbors and make sure that this additional work on the golf course, these additions, I can't remember exactly the words you used, but these additions on the golf course are not detrimental to the neighborhood because because we had to take down trees here, we're going to screen things here and we're going to do all that kind of stuff. And it just feels like, again, that people have put a lot of work in it, but it seems to be addressing specific points, and it's just impossible for me at least, to figure out exactly what's going on here. And so having that kind of soup to nuts would be very, very helpful. And I think it would allow the neighbors and everybody else to sort of understand what the project is and to be able to make their own objections in a way that address the plans as they are currently intended to be done, so that we're not addressing the issue of they're trying to remove thousands of yards of dirt if they're not trying to remove thousands of yards of dirt, et cetera. I will reiterate, for the purposes of this discussion and for the applicants and everybody else, is that I joined, my first position in the town of Concord was on the planning board, and I believe 1985. So it's been a while. And I will not disparage any of them, but I cannot tell you how many of the important institutions of this town, golf courses, schools, hospitals, people who should have known better, will come to these boards after the fact of saying, oh, I cut down those trees. I guess I wasn't supposed to. I removed this dirt. I guess I wasn't supposed to. I put myself in a position in which if you, the planning board, do not, approve this tonight, even though it's completely screwed up, we stand to lose a whole bunch of issues with our institution something. And I just want to say that I think that when large institutions with resources come to these boards, that they ought to be very thoughtful to have a standard of, let's do this stuff right. Because I think that they're important institutions and they're really valued, but you lose your credibility with the town when you don't start out doing it right. And I hate to dump on the Concord Country Club in this particular thing, because you're absolutely not alone. I can guarantee you that. And I just will say for the record, I just find it troubling. And I hope that we can find ways in the future that these institutions will do what every other citizen in the town does, which is most of them, which is to try to come to the boards first. Not the boards, but the staff, our wonderful staff and everything else, and try to walk through these things instead of, coming for forgiveness afterwards. And it's just, and that's the end of that. But it's just been a long time, and I've just been seeing it for years. So thank you.
Can I speak just for a quick second? Couple
Sure.
of things. One, somebody brought it up, and if you'd like to, we could do a site visit, and you could all come out. We could show you, and we could do that. I know you have some of the stuff in the documents there. Peter Rapocchio, our superintendent, I think Mr. Kinderman's had questions about the irrigation system, and if he could just address a little of that this evening, maybe it'd give you something to, so at least so you wouldn't go away with so much unknowledge. And he is the superintendent and deals with the water issues, and he could help with that. But as far as, like I said, we can have you come out, take a look at the site. We can talk about some plantings and screenings on the other side that are on the I would say the southwest side of the pond area, and to show you what that would be. I'd be more than happy to do that. And hopefully help everybody with that. I think that'd be great. But Peter, if he could just answer a few things for you, that'd be great.
Go ahead, Peter.
Peter Rapocchio, golf course superintendent at Concord. Thank you for your time. I'll be brief because I know it's been a long night for everybody, and I appreciate your time. Real quick, just to answer your questions on water usage. So we currently pump from 2 wells that go directly into the irrigation system. That's permitted by the DEP, Mass DEP, for 25 million gallons per year over 214 days. That doesn't change. That's a fact that's documented over 20 years of water history usage, which we track monthly and daily, and submitted to the state every year. So that's currently what we do now. If we don't do anything else, it's what we continue to do. Our irrigation system old, so we have a lot of water loss through sprinkler heads, which wear, pipe friction, leaks because it's an old glue system. New system's much more efficient. We did an irrigation system evaluation in 2017. We found that by a consultant, we found that it was a 50% efficiency. New one is 85% to 95% efficient, reduces energy, reduces water usage over time. That's documented through nozzle size, through spacing of sprinkler heads, through GPS mapping, laying the whole system out on a grid. Much more efficient, much more precise on water usage, which is our goal, because this is a sustainability project. I don't think that gets really mentioned enough, and it's done through Irrigation Society of America, through golf course superintendents. It is documented usage, which we intend to minimize. One thing is the groundwater, the pond is just a supplement for the wells. So the wells will still transfer out of the ground to the pond. We still cannot pull any more than 25 million gallons. That's our limit. We can't touch more than that, and that's permitted by the state. The benefit of this is by doing it, having a pond, we're able to irrigate a little bit more quickly at night, which reduces evapotranspiration. The longer you irrigate at night, you're subject to more evapotranspiration loss. Also, we can forecast if we have a rain coming right now, we have to set the irrigation system for 8 to 12 hours, which is it takes to do the whole golf course. With a new system, we could delay that till 2 o'clock in the morning, and if we don't get any rain, we can water. If we do get rain, then it shuts the pumps off, and we don't have to water anything. We just use Mother Nature's rain. That saves us groundwater, saves us usage. If it does rain, and we have an acre pond, that's acre foot, I don't know the calculation, I think it's 300,000 gallons, recharges the pond. We don't have to irrigate for a couple days, saves water usage over time. That's kind of the goal of this whole project. In working with, the town, working with Alan Cathcart and John Rogers. We've been, working with them for years because we've had the wells in the property, and we, haven't seen any impact. They haven't seen any, we haven't seen any. I think the town has more impact on us than we do on them, which we monitor through our wells right now. We have transducers and aquifers, but overall the system will be more efficient, and it's just going to be more efficient based on how it's laid out, how the controls work, how the spacing of the heads, and how each head can run individually versus now where a lot of things have to come on all together. So that's kind of the irrigation system in a little bit of a nutshell, what we're trying to do.
Hey, any questions
Thank
for that?
you. No,
Very helpful.
that was
Thank you.
helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
I think-
One quick question. Sorry. You currently have monitoring wells, right, or not?
So we have 2 wells right now that we pump from. In each well, we put them in 2011. We put transducers in, which monitor the drawdown. So we know static level, and then we know the bottom of the well. So as the summer goes on, we can see the drawdown start to drop, and that's how we adjust our wells. And the big thing about the new system is, so the old system right now, we have to pump out 600 gallons a minute from these wells at 120 pounds of pressure, which is a substantial strain on gravel pack wells. What we're going to be doing in the future is by transferring the water, we can transfer the water at a rate of possibly 200 to 300 gallons a minute at 20 to 30 pounds of pressure. So therefore, because we don't need the demand to fill the system because we're going to have a pond with pumps to do that. So by extending the water out, we're basically taking the same sip of the straw from the drink, but we're doing it over a longer period of time on a shorter interval. We're actually going to save on redevelopment of the wells. We're not going to tax the aquifer nearly as much, and our drawdown is going to be significantly less. And then by putting the monitoring well in, that's just going to kind of confirm what we've been trying to do. That was one of the things that we had talked with John and Alan about in trying to get this off the ground.
Thank you.
Okay. I think what I should do is open to public comment. See where that gets us. Let's go ahead and do that. Sharon? Yeah. Sharon.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
You just introduce yourself and say where you, your address
70 Williams Road,
and your name.
Sharon McGregor. And thank you all to the ZBA for your remarks, and appreciate the information that's been brought forth by the applicant tonight. One question that's been raised periodically during this meeting is there an impact on the water supply? And we know for a fact that there is already an impact on the groundwater by virtue of the number of trees that have been removed. That clear cutting is an enormous area. When Paul showed the contrast between what was and what now is, I was just astonished to see it. An aerial view, there's nothing like seeing an aerial view and to see the change. And it is a huge amount of trees, number of trees and land area that's been cleared. And it's not just the trees, it's the habitat, it's the ecosystem that was represented by that area. So there has been an impact to the groundwater. And the reason is because when you clear cut an area, you create bare ground. You remove the trees, you remove all the other vegetation, you've excavated soil, enormous volume of soil. And when that happens, the water doesn't behave like it did when the vegetation was in place. It doesn't get retained by the roots, the tree roots drawn and infiltrated into the ground. It doesn't find its way to the groundwater. It typically runs off in sheets to the wetlands, in in this case, Jenny Dugan Swamp, and it doesn't infiltrate into ground. So there clearly is already an impact from that to the groundwater. So I wanted that to be understood. And by extension, there is likely, we'll find out, we'll see, going to be an impact to the water supplies. So there have been enormous impacts already to the site. And as a member of this neighborhood adjacent to the golf course, we all believe that there's been insufficient analysis to date to answer all of the very important questions. You've answered many, but there are many more that that have not been answered. And clearly we feel that there are other far less impactful alternatives to the pump house and the pond that have not been presented in any detailed way. And what we would like to see the applicant do is to perform a very thoughtful, thorough alternatives analysis, including a no-build option, recognizing that there are other means for meeting the water needs of the golf course. Even the sustainable turf management alternative, which more and more golf courses are using, as well as water conservation. And these really should be looked at. The applicant should make every effort to minimize impacts first and foremost, especially recognizing that there are tremendous impacts already imposed on the site and already imposed on the adjacent properties and property values by virtue of the elimination of a wonderful ecosystem. And the environmental quality of the neighborhood has been severely compromised, and there's no way to overstate that. And let's all be clear that with the climate change that we are seeing, which is accelerating by the day, we're in a crisis situation worldwide, and locally, we have a responsibility to make our decisions based on climate considerations. And that includes biodiversity and ecosystem considerations because they interrelate. So be aware that the extended droughts that we're going to be seeing with more frequency, you're not going to be able to keep the water in that pond half or more full without drawing high volumes of water from the nearby wetlands and water supplies when you withdraw from your groundwater. So there's going to be further impacts in that way. We don't have the regulatory system in place right now to truly be able to manage this particular application, make the right decisions. We don't have the necessary regulations to meet the needs of our climate and the protection of biodiversity and ecosystems. Those are coming down the road. Concord has wonderful regulations already, but there's more needed. We need better earth removal regulation and tree cutting regulation as an example. But because those aren't yet in place, what we need to be able to trust in is for applicants to do their level best to look at alternatives and minimize the impacts. And this project clearly does not in any way look at alternatives with any thoroughness, and it does not minimize impacts. And we as a neighborhood want to ask you to do an alternatives analysis, a thoughtful one, and minimize those impacts so that you as your property is going to address the climate situation and the need to protect biodiversity and ecosystems that integrate with climate mitigation. So that's what we ask, and we want to see all the questions answered. And what you've done, I'll close with this, what you've already done to that property is huge. It's severely compromised the quality of our neighborhood. So we want to see you to really do better and to help us to really want to have you as our neighbor, and continue to work with you and have a great golf course and have a good quality of life in our neighborhood. That's what we're asking. And I thank you for your consideration.
Great, thank you for your comments. Any other comments?
Yeah, hi, Barrett Comji, 99 Williams Road.
Hi.
Hi. So I've been watching this process evolve sort of from what I thought was the start until I reviewed the resubmission that was filed in September. And I am grateful to all the board members and all of the various town officials and staff and administration that have worked very hard to ensure that town safety and town resources were protected and that this process followed along a path. But I would like to note that a professional engineer was engaged. In fact, the same engineer who's sitting before us, his firm, was engaged in May of 2019. And that is actually when the applicant approached the NRC with one of the site proposals and a concept that's included in the application that actually identifies every tree, shows test pits, and the applicant actually acknowledged that he approached the NRC and there was a discussion about what was required to do the necessary work at that site. He determined that that was too much of cost or too much of an obligation. And so he proceeded. And in September 6th, there was a third concept that's also in the application, September 6th of 2019, which is a good 2 or 3 months prior to any of this excavation or tree clearing taking place. And again, a very detailed site plan was generated by Stamsky and McNary, showing the trees in existence and the test pits. And so clearly this thorough analysis was started. And there was discussion. Plans for a pump house were developed by an architect on September 13th. And so they were hiring to get this pond implemented. So the fact of the matter is there was thought put in place. And I do commend all the town officials, and as I mentioned, for working with the applicant, but it's now all been after the fact to ensure at least minimum compliance. And I've watched the town engineers repeatedly ask the same questions and for the same metrics and the same data. And I think that that is fundamentally what's been lacking during this process. And if I could just circle back to the NRC comment for a minute, because I was present at that NRC meeting. And the problem with the passage of time and all of these delays is that some of these things get forgotten. But at the NRC meeting, actually, and what was recommended by the NRC in the conclusion of that meeting was, yes, there was a resolution of a violation, which was lumped in along with a notice of intent that they required the Natural Resource Commission to make a recommendation. And the Natural Resource Commission, on top of being stunned at how this had progressed, also stated very clearly that there was a lack of information, including the efficiency of pumps that Peter was just speaking about and other valuable information that would allow them to ascertain not just what the impact on the town water supply was, but what the impact on the surrounding streams and the watershed and ponds and wetlands. And so the recommendation that Delia mentions is that not just to assess whether this would impact the town water supply, but also whether it would have an impact. Shallow groundwater withdrawals will likely have a larger impact on water availability. And the memo's there and you can read it again. But what she was recommending was a third-party independent assessment on what the overall impact on the region is. Because one of the NRC board members actually asked, did you do due diligence and assess what the impact on the wetlands would be and on the surrounding area? And the applicant noted, no, I think it's fine. The stream runs through our area. We tested around our pumps. And so I think these are important things in the process that when we get away and we're in reactive mode and we're pulling information out of the applicant rather than the applicant providing a complete package with details and justifications, The first application, for example, states that they required 3.6 million capacity in order for this project to be viable. Now, it turned out that that site that they excavated and they clear cut was not suitable to fit 3.6 million capacity. So over the last year, all they've been working towards is trying to achieve some capacity without violating the groundwater 4-foot rule and not being a prohibitive use. So they got to 3 million. So now here they're saying we're at 3 million gallons, but there's no explanation for how they're performing this function with 600,000 gallons less water. And the same is true, and thank you to the board for their observations about water usage, because when they start making statements such as this actually will save the town groundwater, that is factually inaccurate. In fact, the opposite potentially is true, where it removes, and this has been noted by the Department of Public Works and even their own expert states, that it removes restrictions that have been in place for over 20 years on the removal of groundwater, which currently was 600 gallons a minute, and now it will be actually double. So they'll be able to pump out of the pond at twice the capacity. They will have to fill the pond in order to pump it out. And this is another area where they're trying to have both sides. On the one hand, they claim that they're going to get a lot of the water, not from the groundwater, but from rain and snow melt and water runoff. But then on the flip side, they say there won't be a detrimental impact to the wetlands and surrounding areas. So I agree, there needs to be metrics and there need to be things that can be responded to rather than saying it may help the water supply. Well, it very well may have the opposite effect. And if this project had gone forward, and there still has not been an answer for how the engineering firm that was engaged and how the trucks that were trucking off the soil all got permitted and or how all made plans and proceeded without complying with bylaws. And when I talk to residents in the area, we all have worked with this buffer and with the wetlands surrounding us and with town bylaws and rules and complied. And when we hire a contractor to remove some dirt or cut down a tree, they make sure that permits are in place. And so this was a safety concern, as has been acknowledged by the applicant. The only reason the safety concern was resolved is because residents took action. And if residents hadn't taken action, the plan for this pond would have absolutely violated town bylaws regarding a public resource, town drinking water, and there would have been no recourse, and they would jeopardize town wells. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact. And I'll stop now. And I thank you for your time.
No, thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. Anyone else? No, are we good? Gregor, are you trying to talk? Yeah, we can't hear you. We still can't hear you. You're on camera. Thank you. Yeah, we still can't hear you. Nope. Nope.
He might be having trouble with his microphone. If he can't do it there, he can come up to my computer.
IT department has been called in. Nope. All right. Are there any other comments in the meantime? I don't think so. So how about Gregor, do you want to try a different computer? Sharon, you want to try to get in touch with him? How about I leave public comment open, but we talk? Does that work while he's trying to figure this out? I mean, it sounds to me like we're all over the place and we need someone to guide us through this. And there's a lack of trust, which Jim has indicated.
Got it.
Did you get it? Greg, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right, great. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for being patient. I'm sorry about that technology. I have too many microphones.
That's all right.
I filed a chat I'll
Yeah,
emphasize.
sorry, can you just introduce yourself for the record? And say
Gregor
your address?
McGregor, 70 Williams Road. I belong to Sharon McGregor, who spoke earlier, but I'll address something different. That is the legal effect of what's before you. What you have is correctly described by Mr. Comgene as an after-the-fact application. That changes everything. I practice in the field. I watch presentations. I review applications every day, every week of every year in my professional capacity. You have the authority under the cases decided in Massachusetts to reject the application until there's a restoration. That is, no board has to be faced with an after-the-fact application that gets its leg up. You had authority to reject the application to say the property needs to be restored to its original condition before you even entertain an application. But that's water over the dam. In Concord, we regularly entertain applications after the fact. Indeed, I tell clients that's the common currency. Most applications are after the fact because the applicant has started something or other. Now here, I'll echo a comment recently made that it's unbelievable that an engineering firm of the quality of Stamsky and Newberry let this applicant proceed with the project without acting on what surely had been the advice of Stamsky and McNary as to whom do they have to apply to do what. That's a fundamental aspect of project planning, which I do professionally. From whom do we need permits to do what? Hence the enforcement actions and the unhappiness of the NRC, building inspector, the officials who regulate and protect our water supply district, and of course our earth removal bylaw, which is pretty darn good. It's a pretty darn good earth removal bylaw compared to others in Massachusetts. So here we are after the fact. So it's correct, as was observed by more than one board member, that we need an explanation as to how this came about, and we need something more than just whittling away at the adverse impacts obvious from the work already done in the original proposal. It changes the circumstances that this is an after the fact application. Your review properly, judging from your questions and the information you want, is going beyond just, well, what's your justification now that most of it's already done or it's already started? So I support fully all the questions asked for substantive as well as other information that the board members have voiced. You're right on target for that. Now, what to do? Well, you could require a peer review paid for by the applicant under the statute passed by Massachusetts a few years ago, empowering boards to require peer reviews at their choice, consultants of their choice, paid for by applicants if there are issues that have been joined but not resolved, or facts that you want to know about, or opinions you'd like to have. Because all you have right now are the opinions of board members, town officials, and of course the applicant. On the record as it presents now, I recommend disapproval. No more continuances, no more studies, no more alternatives, no peer review. On the record as the applicant has chosen to give you up through tonight, in my professional and personal opinion, this is an unapprovable application. Notice how, as I said in my chat, words like we want to have resilience, we're stewards of the land, the violation is fixed, we want to make everybody happy, it's not practical to do any more, it's not wise to plant trees around the pond, debris will fall into the pond, it's no longer in the NRC jurisdiction, we've reduced the size, the unacceptable will never happen, are platitudes. They're not objective opinion information. You need objective opinion information with a basis that is citable, because you'll need to cite it if anybody challenges this further. So on summary, I recommend that you disapprove this. Otherwise, You'll be accepting, just minimizing everything that comes up. Basically, that's been the approach of this after the fact applicant. Not even a real sorry, just, well, it's not that bad. Oh, we've solved the NRC. Well, excuse me, there was a serious violation of the Wetlands Protection Act, which protects a lot of dry land called the floodplain and the riverfront area out to 200 feet from Jenny Duggan Brook. I work hard to protect Jenny Duggan Brook. It's the boundary of my property. It comes right out of the Jenny Duggan Swamp. I protect the beaver dam there, as does the two-person beaver team from the town. And it flows into the golf course right past the Comgene property, who also protect it. So in legal terms, this does not meet your bylaw criteria. The evidence is not substantial enough to support approval, and it would be arbitrary and capricious for you to approve it.
Thank you.
That's my recommendation, and thank you very much.
Thank you. One more trip around the room here. Anyone else? Public comment? I'm going to close public comment. I mean, it is an interesting point. That is a way forward, is to just disapprove it, but I don't know where that would leave us.
I'm still confused because I had asked this previously at another meeting, and now I'm hearing Elizabeth Hughes say something about a use permit, whereas all the agenda and the notice says an earth removal permit. Can I understand, is there a use permit being applied for here? And why isn't that, if so, why isn't that kind of presented as such? Or is it really just an earth removal permit?
It's not just an earth removal permit. So a recreation facility in a residential zone district is by special permit. So any expansion of that recreational facility or private club. So the building commissioner and we did speak, and with the irrigation pond and the pump house, this was considered an expansion of that use.
Okay. And the fact that it's in the groundwater district and might affect drinking water or be in an area contributing to drinking water, we think we're not falling under a groundwater permit. It's just the special permit from the underlying kind of recreational use in a residential area.
Right, and a earth removal permit after the fact.
Okay.
Correct.
And they approved for they applied for the special permit after you guys said, I mean, I don't see it in the application material either, except for the mention of 11.6, but that's just, so after the fact, basically you and Ray mentioned this, that it needed to be a expansion.
Well, if they were to apply for a special permit, it is under 11.6 for a recreational use.
Right. There's just they didn't talk about it. That's the only place I see it on their application is 11.6 written as the.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So basically we're all over the place still.
But I think that goes to, are there two, and I think we talked about separating parts of it, right? Could we deny the earth removal and still continue the use application?
So I think that gets back to your earlier question of what would be the resolution, or what would be the if you were to deny the earth removal permit, what would be that resolution to, for that, would they have to bring 1,200 cubic yards back in, or would they have to restore 1,200 cubic yards, whatever that factors into in square feet. So I think that's a difficult question.
But I'm not sure the board has to answer that question, right? We just have to decide if there's no permit, and then we're not the enforcer over the violation necessarily. But we still then are considering a special permit application for the.
Well,
How do we do that in a vacuum though, Robbie? Are we like,
right, and just, you know, if you just deny the permit, like you shouldn't have taken off that 200 cubic yards. That, I think, to me means that you bring it back, right? And but as I think what Elizabeth is saying, so and then what, you know, what good does that do?
Right, but then we still have to talk about the special permit for the use.
Right.
For half the pond.
Right.
well, that's the point. You're right, Robbie. If we skip to, let's look at the actual criteria for granting these permits, is that what you're saying? And look at the subsections, would we even be
Well,
able?
yeah, it's just, I don't know why we need to talk about earth removal anymore, is kind of where I'm trying to go here. Because if you look at the earth removal criteria, it's like, you know, the removal is the minimum required to accomplish the purpose. Well, now to accomplish the purpose, we're saying they don't need to remove any earth. So how do you meet that? And then there's the other criteria about injurious to abutters, and it's not even substantially detrimental, it's just detrimental to abutters. I think we have some clear detriment to abutters here. So I can't see how we could ever get to approval of the earth removal. But the real big picture projects and permit that we're talking about is having a pond and the use of that and the pump house and the irrigation system associated with it. And what are we gonna do about the special permit for that?
Where we're back to considering impacts on neighborhood character and impacts on natural environment.
Right.
We're
We
right
are, but
I agree with you. I don't see how we
just
get
trying
there.
to clean up the application to be like, what is this about? It's not about earth removal anymore.
Right. Well, I agree with you, Robbie. I think it's about earth removal in the sense that you do have to have a special permit for the removal of more than 1,000 cubic yards of ground. And set that aside for the moment, if we decided that there was a plan here that was relevant and, you know, was acceptable on the permit side, on the other issue, then you know, I think that it would be prudent for the approval of that plan to clean up the other violation issue, if you thought you could, or to ask them to put the 200 yards back or whatever you're going to do. So I'm totally agreeing with you in the sense that I think that the focus here is and should be about whether or not to grant the special permit for the pond sort of as a first issue, and to think about the earth removal at the back end. But at the same token, I think that one way or the other, we have to have the earth removal resolved. And if we grant the rest of the approval for the project itself, I don't see why we wouldn't, through the history of our board, go ahead and grant the earth removal permit just to get that out of the way. So I don't disagree. I think that we ought to focus on the thing that's the thing, which is this pond and the project itself, as opposed to the specific earth removal, which we can deal with later.
Which I'm again gonna say, I think we should do a site visit if that's what we're looking at. I know everyone seems thrilled to do that, but if that's what we're looking at is how this land is gonna be used.
No, I walked William Street on Saturday, I believe it was, up and down. So I saw it, but I'm very happy to go out again.
Particularly on a day like today.
I was going to say that if you can guarantee a day like today, I'll be out there.
Well, tomorrow's going to be a nice day too.
Yeah.
So if, as you know, if more than 2 of you go out, so I imagine it's going to be the 4 of you, then it does need to be a noticed site visit and would need to be posted 48 hours. So you're looking at something beyond Tuesday of next week. So,
And even if it's posted, we're not allowed to ask anything. Is that right?
well,
We're allowed to ask, but
I'm
no
just thinking if, like
discussion. Right?
Alan Cathcart or someone
Yeah.
walked with us.
you can ask questions, and you can get answers, but you cannot deliberate amongst you or have a conversation amongst you about those answers.
Does that mean that we could say, hey, Delia and Alan, would you come walk this with us?
I will send them an email when you're done here and ask them if they are also available to come on a site visit. So with that in mind, I would ask that you at least try to do that during working hours for town staff and not on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Okay. I mean, that's fine with me. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I think it would be helpful if Delia's there to say, this is the NRC jurisdiction. This is what we were looking at, and Alan's there. I mean, it can't hurt to have more information. Is that reasonable?
Works for me. I
Yeah.
work from home these days.
Same here.
I'm in the neighborhood as well. Robbie?
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, you want to ask them and send out some times? And with the applicant, and I will say this is that it's getting frustrating, I'm sure, to all of us that it's so late and we're the ones kind of trying to piece this together. And it would be really nice if we had something that made sense from someone. I mean, why are we having to go through this craziness? So I don't know who I'm asking. I know you, Elizabeth, said earlier, a narrative of some sort. I mean, my God, I don't know who would be responsible for doing that, but.
I'll have to think on that more.
Think on it. It just seems putting the burden on us to kind of unwind all of this is a little.
No, I understand.
I'm not putting it on you. I mean, on any.
And I will also, if the applicant has stated they can ask if their hydrogeologist is available for your April 8th meeting. I will also reach out to the Public Works Director and Water and Sewer Superintendent and Engineer and see if they are also available to come to your April 8th meeting, so that you can have those experts provide you their input on the conversations that they had and the information that they all were reviewing.
That sounds great. Well, does that make sense for everyone as a starting point? We go out and actually look at the property, get some input from the other staff members, and then take it from there.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's good.
Great. Yep. So Elizabeth, you'll send us something, or Heather will send us something about time.
Yep. We'll poll the board and town staff
Okay. So
are we also asking the applicant to analyze alternative sites a bit better? Or
at least present what you did analyze? It sounds like you did analyze them, but.
Yeah, and with that, would there be an option of putting this pond underground, and then using a underground detention system, if you will, storm bricks and the like, to name a manufacturer? I think that will be could be a solution as well, instead of having a pond. Just
we will talk about that, and we can discuss it further with the board next month.
So I will ask the board, just looking ahead, and then your availability is, with most of you working from home or in the area, is like morning, is afternoon an option, or just to kind of get a sense of the board's?
Yes, it's an option for me in working hours, afternoon. Yeah. Morning is fine.
Morning or afternoon doesn't it's a day-to-day thing for me. So, honestly, either is, both are options because it could work just fine depending on the day.
Yeah, and for me in general, I have the most things scheduled, recurring appointments in the morning, so
Afternoon
would be preferred, but
okay.
Okay.
For scheduling purposes, if I may please, is there any way we could schedule this starting on the March 24th on? Or March 25th on, I should say, at the end of the month, not next week, but maybe at the end of the following week? Only because I will not be here. And I'd like to be here when you do that walkabout.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that.
So that's, I'll get a couple of days and times from town staff. And then Heather will send out a poll for the board.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, can we continue this then to our next meeting?
Yes, please.
Motion to continue it to our next meeting?
I move to continue this hearing for Concord Country Club.
What time,
to
Heather?
our
7:20.
April 8th, you said? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay,
7:20. Do I have a second?
great.
second.
All right, Mr. Kindermans,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
All right.
Ms. Akers-Moore, aye. All right, we will see you soonish.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, I now can't find my agenda, so what we got, Elizabeth?
Heather,
We have
you
to-
have minutes, and then you have the 53G rules and regs.
And
Adopted.
then 6 Winthrop Street, I think.
What?
What?
Junction Village. The
Oh, the
assisted living.
administrative items, yes.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to, should we start with 53G? You want
Sure.
a brief synopsis of that?
So the Mass General Law allows, as you know, boards and planning boards and natural resources commissions to hire outside consultants to review projects. And the Board of Appeals has adopted 53G, and we found the adoptions that they had done previously was, I think, way back in 2002, were more specific for comprehensive permits, personal wireless facilities, and we just felt it would be better just to have a adoption of rules and regs that was just more general, specific, just all special permits and all variances.
Right. Any
So
issues?
just,
yeah.
There's no issues with this at all. Just remind me just briefly, Elizabeth. So, but what is the actual process here to the extent that the board does want to hire somebody like this? Are these paid for by the applicant? Are they paid for by the town? Do we have to get special permission from the town manager?
Nope,
cetera?
nope. It is purely within the board's right to hire outside consultants. What we normally do is, depending on the type of project, we may go out and get 3 quotes from different firms, depending on what it is, or if it's a specific thing that we've worked with a particular firm on, let's say, like hydrology, we may go out and we get a quote from them for the work to review and develop a scope of work. The applicant is, provided that information saying, all right, so this is the firm that we've gone to and got a quote, and this is the quote. And the applicant is required to deposit those fees with the town. Those fees get deposited with the town accountant in a separate special account and are held in that account. The contract with the consultant is, the third-party consultant is contracted with the town, not with the applicant. So invoices come into the town and get paid out of that special account that is funded by the applicant.
Thank you. And then the last question I have is it a routine matter from your point of view that if you spot something where the board, either typically or in that particular special situation should be thinking about hiring a consultant? I mean, is that part of your general, I think maybe it is, your general routine to sort of advise the board early that this is a situation that may call for that, or how do you do that criteria?
So when applications come in, depending on the type of application, but so like a PRD, those types of applications get sent to all the different departments and the specific town staff in each of the departments for their review and comment. When a larger project or a complicated project comes in, it gets sent, and within the first 2 weeks, I reach out to those staff people and say, okay, well, this has, they've submitted a traffic report. There seems to be a potential for traffic impacts. Does town staff feel that they have the knowledge or time or ability to review and analyze that and provide comments? Or do you feel that this has gone to a level where you feel that the board should hire a third-party consultant? So it's a conversation with town staff based on the type of project and the level of impacts the project may have.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm very supportive of this.
Do we need to vote on it, Elizabeth?
Yes, somebody would need to move to accept the 53G rules and regs as written, which they're the same for the Board of Appeals as the Planning Board has adopted them. Natural Resources Commission has adopted them, and then second and vote.
Okay, so moved.
Second, anyone?
I said so moved, but I was muted, so.
You can second it.
So I'll second it.
All right. All right. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Kindermans?
Aye.
Bakersmore, aye. Okay.
Too late.
The Winthrop, what are we doing with that?
So that's the Junction Village Comprehensive Permit. So I think they're now in the winding down with getting their final funding with the state in place and moving forward with, I think now they're moving forward with looking at their conditions of approval, but they will, from what I understand, are discussing on-site sewage disposal, a joint agreement with the MCI Concord prison, but they do need an additional 1-year time extension on their comprehensive permit. Just so the board knows, this type of project and this type of comprehensive permit, as far as how their funding structure works through the state, typically takes at least 3 years. There are very few projects that ever get funding their first year. They might get partial funding their second year and additional funding their third year. So, they have requested a 1-year time extension.
I'm actually surprised that we can't do that administratively on a comp permit. If we can just extend it. I don't have any problems with it, but I never heard of it. I've actually presented and asked for boards to extend comp permits, but
it's that iron grip that we have on the town of Concord.
I guess so. I guess
I mean, you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I moved to grant an extension to the Winthrop Street project for 1 year.
Yeah, I think this is like the second time extension. But
I
Yeah,
still move to grant it. so.
Yeah.
and I will second that.
All right, Mr. Kindermans,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
All right.
Ms. Akers Moore, aye. All right, all we have are minutes. I sent some very minor changes to one of them. Everyone else okay with them?
so you would have to actually tell them what your changes are.
I don't remember. Or what did I change? There was something that ended, it was just a sentence that ended with nothing, that a paragraph, and then oh man, you're gonna make me dig this up. Heather, are you still awake?
Yes, I'm here.
What did I do? What did I say? Yeah, I know, right? Here we go, edits.
No, I saw the same thing. There was like a sentence that ended halfway through that was trying to point out the findings that we'd made or something, or
Yeah.
like recite the findings under the.
That, and then, oh yeah, I said, what is it supposed to say here? It was, the board found the location of the accessory dwelling on this site, something, nothing. It just ended. Heather, did you fix that?
Yes.
And then I changed something else. What the heck did I change here? It's like I put an F in front of or because you wanted to say for a special permit and not or a special permit. And those were my amazing comments. So does anyone want to move to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Amended.
As amended.
As amended.
All right, second, anyone?
Jim seconded.
Jim
Okay,
seconded.
okay, all right, Mr. Kindermans,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Akers Moore, aye.
Um,
Fantastic. We all done?
Yeah, no, just also the Theo's question on the comp permit. Technically, the permit will not expire. I think, Heather, I think it's in May. Because of the state of emergency and the executive order has told all expiration till, I think, don't quote me, but I think it's, like 90 days after the end of the state of emergency. So the applicant just felt they'd feel better with just having a time extension and not rely on that tolling period. And
great.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm totally familiar with the funding mechanisms, and that this is not unusual.
Right. Thank you, everyone. See you.
Thank you. Well done, Elizabeth.
Thanks. Off to bed. Good night.
Off to have a beer.
So you're adjourning the meeting, Elizabeth?
Oh man, she's gonna make us adjourn. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.